On the night of February 1st, 1959, 9 experienced hikers pitched a tent on an open slope in the northern Urals, about 600 miles east of Moscow and roughly 100 miles from the nearest road. They were students and graduates of the Ural Polytechnical Institute in Sverdlovsk. The youngest was 20, the oldest was 38. Between them, they had covered thousands of kilometers of Soviet wilderness on skis. This trip was rated Category 3, the highest difficulty the Soviet sports tourism system awarded. Sometime after they finished their evening meal, all 9 of them cut their way out of their tent from the inside, walked down the mountain in the dark in socks and bare feet, in temperatures somewhere between 25 and 40 degrees below 0 Celsius, leaving behind their boots, their coats, their axes, their food, and a stove that they had not lit. They walked a mile downhill to the tree line. 2 of them built a small fire under a Siberian pine and died beside it in their underwear. 3 of them turned around and tried to climb back up to the tent and died on the slope, spaced out along the line of return like markers. The last 4 made it into a ravine 75 meters beyond the pine, cut down 14 small trees, laid a floor of branches in the snow, and died there. 3 of them with injuries a forensic examiner would later compare to a car crash and no external wounds to explain those injuries. It took searchers 3 months to find all 9 of them. The criminal investigation ran from February to May of 1959 and closed with a sentence that has been argued over and over since. It said the hikers died as a result of, quote, a compelling natural force which they were not able to overcome. The file was stamped secret and sent to an archive. A wild and interesting story coming from the former Soviet Union. My name is Monty Mader.
And I'm Andy Jones.
This is the Dyatlov Incident on Highway to Hell.
Greetings and salutations, everybody.
And salutations. Dear Victor, shall we listen to some classic music from the 1900s?
Oh, God. Oh, God.
Some Foo Fighters, some Nirvana.
Red Hot Chili Peppers, maybe, Commodore.
Also, their lesser-known cover band, the Lukewarm Bell Peppers. Sorry.
Forgot about that.
It just happens.
Anyway.
Anyways, hello, everybody. Welcome back.
Hey.
As always, big thanks to our Patreon supporters making another show possible.
Oh, yeah, tons of them. Thank you, guys.
Some cool stuff. Head over there. I hope you've been loving the fireside chats that we do and a little additional bonus, about 20 minutes typically, that we've been putting over there. Really, really fun.
Our rantings and ravings.
And scaring Monty with horror films that I haven't seen yet.
Oh, yeah. Forgot about that.
That was good.
Yeah.
God, that
Caveat.
scene. What was the scene with the woman walking out of the corner?
Yeah, Pulse.
Yes, that has been deeply disturbing to me. There's something
Welcome
about
to my life.
Something about her movements.
Yeah.
Deeply disturbing.
A lot of people say she looks like a predator, like
Yeah.
a big cat, like how she ducks down then goes back like a cat would,
and
or
you're
something.
like, why would you do that?
It's so strange,
so
dude.
good.
That was one clip I saw. Of course, I'm going on YouTube. The scariest scene ever. Okay, I'm by myself. Yeah, let's check it out. It can't be that bad. Then that night,
You're just laying in the bed like, no.
looking at some clothes on a chair, thinking it's some sort of creature. I scare
Anything
myself.
cool happened to you this week? Anything wild, weird, interesting?
I can't really think of anything. Just been working a lot of gigs.
Yeah,
a lot of gigs. That's about it.
Yeah.
Trying to get together with Calvin for bass tracks for our original stuff,
we
which
got
would be
songs
great.
coming out soon. Very excited.
It's just tough because he's working so much, I'm working so much. We're all crazy busy, so it's just trying to find the time to do it, and it'll get done eventually.
Yes, it will.
I know because we were aiming for August, but
it's not going to happen in August. Nope. That's okay. It will, it's what's meant to be will be, and what's meant for me won't miss me is something that I say a lot.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one thing. It's like it happens at the right time. You can't really force it. It's like I always told Nathan. He's like, man, we need to get stuff going. I'm like, dude, it'll happen at the right time.
Yep.
It just, you kind of have to put it out there and trust
you have to
the process.
you have to keep it front of mind and you have to keep it on your priorities. But it will typically, when timing things happen like this, it ends up coming out at exactly the right time.
Oh yeah,
it ends up coming together the way that it should.
You're crazy busy. I'm crazy busy. Drew's getting married. Nathan's been busy.
Weird.
Drew's
it's just married.
Yeah, it is crazy.
Drew's our drummer.
It's crazy how fast that came up though, because I feel like it was just announced.
Yeah, they just got engaged yesterday.
And
it feels like it wasn't yesterday.
Been over a year, right?
Yeah, it's been about a year.
Jeez, okay.
Yeah.
My God, man.
I'll tell you something that's been driving me crazy all week is that I cannot get the DuckTales theme song out of my head.
That doesn't mean sing it here. I don't want to get stuck in my...
Life is like a hurricane here in Duck World. So if you see me like beat bopping at any point by myself, that is what I'm hearing. That's what the jukebox is playing.
Oh my God. Oh, also, I learned something music related too, that the guitar solo to Bohemian Rhapsody works over Basket Case by Green Day.
Does it really?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
When did you play that? I know you did it.
Probably on a gig recently. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Like, how'd that gig go? I assume it went well.
I was there. Out of all the gigs that ever happened, it was one.
Exactly. Playing tonight.
Let's get into these comments and then this weird ass story.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is a weird one.
This was so weird.
Shout out to my mom for suggesting this.
Yeah, this comes from Andy's mom. Hi, Mom.
So, a lot of comments here, man. Everybody, thank you so much. Here we go. I grew up in the Swedenborgian church, new church. Swedenborg was a known opiate user. He also talks of aliens and other worlds. His writings are quite interesting. I'm going to have to dive into that.
Oh, nice.
So I'm very careful when I listen to Highway to Hell. My 5-year-old granddaughter is like a tape recorder, always running around explaining who Bitchy Andy is.
Bitchy Andy is.
It's not a conversation I want to have with her mom. Sorry. Sorry about that.
That's amazing.
Let's see. Love your podcast. I believe you're referencing Pearl from the X trilogy. Yes, that's what I was talking about. Mia Goth.
Yes.
And I'm like, the movie Pearl, it's the X trilogy. I couldn't remember that. Thank you so much. Let's see here. Look into what happened to the male teenagers that started the fires that eventually became Gatlinburg, Tennessee fires in 2016.
Oh, okay.
14 dead, 190 injured, over 2,000 structures destroyed, $2 billion in damages, and they were initially charged with aggravated arson, but the charges were later dropped. Their names were never released. 14 dead and zero accountability. I remember that story.
Whoa.
I didn't know that charges were dropped.
That's crazy. I want to know who their parents are.
Marsha Blackburn, probably.
Right.
But we'll have to.
Oh, Marsha.
Marsha.
Dude, and listen, Monty Fritz is even worse.
Never heard of her.
Never heard of her.
Let's see. Let's see here. Say it with me. Vonnegut, as in Kurt Vonnegut. Now get reading his timeless body of essential work. I recommend starting with the Slaughterhouse-Five. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, Kurt Vonnegut. Thank you for that. I love the travel itineraries, but spooky stories would be incredible too. And yeah, everybody, we're going to kind of alternate depending on the location.
We're just going to mix and match based on what the story calls for.
You know, I mean, like the story today is in the Ural Mountains. I'm not sure how many coffee shops are up there.
Well, listen, what I did with this though, so I still did build a travel itinerary, but this is going to be like a fantasy itinerary because it's really tough to travel to Russia right now. As a U.S. citizen, like between like the visas, like bank cards don't work in Russia. Like it's very, you're probably not going to use this one, but we'll chat at least a little bit about it for funsies. Although, and I had forgotten about this till I was working on the script and editing it. Russia has a really incredible background of like lore and mythology and like witchcraft, herbal medicine. They have a very strong tradition. We could actually do a whole episode just on Russia's history with that.
That would actually be really, really fun. Now, where were we here? I just lost one. My bad. I love Skinwalker Ranch. I got to meet Thomas Winterton at a convention in May. He was so nice. That's awesome. I prefer the itineraries. You'll get your itineraries. Let's see here. Funny how the kids who actually get haunted by demons are always the most religious ones from the good families and not the freaks targeted by the satanic panic. That's that's a good point.
Listen, you never seen me in the same room as the demon.
That's a good point there, listener. Let's see. You're giving me a lot to think about there. Spooky stories. Again, it's like it's like a 50-50 split. So we're doing, the Blair Witch movie might have been done for pennies, but how much did they have to pay in therapists for the actors after having gone through that? I agree, man.
That's true.
That was a comment from our Lights Out episode. I'm sure I was talking about it. That's one of my all-time favorite horror movies.
It's so good. It's so creative and inventive, like in its moment. So smart, so out of the box.
And some people are like, it's so boring. It's like, not really, like, that's not the point. It's the atmosphere, people. It's not always, it doesn't always have to be like crazy and gory. I mean, I like that too, but all right, let's see. I'm going to jump over here real quick. There were some good ones on Patreon. Let's see. I'm really enjoying these chats. There are a lot of people are really talking about how much they like our insane.
Yeah, that's when you get like the behind
chats.
the scenes, and we share our own personal scary stories and horror films. And
so you remember in the fireside chat where we were talking about Disney and like the animation stuff, like the weird like. So this person chimes in, there is a penis on one of the castle spires of the original cover for The Little Mermaid. The story goes that the artist that drew the cover was told that he wouldn't get royalties or something, so right before the cover went to print, he drew the penis as a giant FU to Disney. They didn't catch it before thousands were sold.
That's incredible.
But when they did the cover change, they tried to issue a recall for the ones that did sell. I actually have one of them and will never sell it.
I mean, obviously.
You got gold there.
Like, you have to keep it.
Solid gold right there.
Solid gold.
And I'll do a couple more and we'll dive into this story. But there were some really nice comments. Andy, your allegiance in standing up for women is admirable. I appreciate your care and concern in caring for others. So many men are either complicit with demeaning women, silent about the ways women are held back, or also victims of oppression of some sort. Yet we have a masculine badass dude. That's me. Not really. I'm just a giant nerd.
Bitchy Andy. We're making you a t-shirt that says Bitchy
I'm
Andy.
going to need that, evidently. And again, sorry to that woman whose daughter's running around telling everybody about me and calling me Bitchy Andy. You know. Let's see. Oh, P.S. Missed your pun torture of Andy this week. Don't give her ideas, man.
I do need to come back with my puns and my dad jokes. That's okay. I gave you the DuckTales theme song today.
Yeah, that wasn't as brutal, but that doesn't mean that you need to go back to that. But no, and that's pretty much it. I mean, there's so many. I mean, I see everything. And I appreciate all the comments, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the comments, for the recent likes of the show, shares. That helps us so much. I know that, especially even if you can't afford a subscription, I get money's tight for so many people.
Absolutely.
But anytime you tell somebody about the show or you send us a comment or a review, that helps boost our visibility and that helps us so much. Mm-hmm. So we really, really appreciate it. And also, because we did have some very unkind comments the last week, we are always happy to take constructive criticism.
Oh, yeah.
But you don't have to be a dick about it. You could be nice. And also, especially as we go into a Russian episode, I write out pronunciation lists for this. We look over them. We only have so much time to practice them. So if there's ever a mispronunciation, it's not done out of a lack of respect. It's simply that I only have 24 hours in the day, just like you, and I work 18 of them.
Yeah. I have stuff going on too, believe it or not.
Believe it or not. Bitchy Andy's got a life.
Yeah.
I love this. We got to have
believe it or not.
We should create a little mini squishy stuffed of you of some kind of different versions of Bitchy Andy.
God.
It could be great. I'll think about it. I'll
give me a little little totem.
Right.
Can come to life. Chase people around.
This week we are going to the northern Urals, the mountain of Mansi. People call Kholat Syakhl, and we're going to the city that sent those 9 people north. See, here we go. Yekaterinburg, there we go. Formerly Sverdlovsk, a place that has been a closed military industry city and an execution site of the last Russian imperial family, and one of the most interesting food and music towns in Russia, sometimes all in the same century.
I wonder if Steven Seagal hangs out there.
Probably. Dude, that dude is so weird.
Not to totally interrupt
Steven Seagal and John Travolta, man, which is weird people. I'm just Monty lore. I have always been scared of John Travolta. He freaks me out. But so does Steven Seagal.
He's horrible.
He's so weird.
He's like some sort of hero.
He lives in Russia.
Yeah, he's like a hero over there.
So weird.
He's like a political icon over there for whatever
so
reason. Maybe not political, but you know what I mean. But what I'm trying to say is he's friends with Putin.
Yeah, I mean, well, there it is.
Strange.
Weird.
Look up the footage. Sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. Today we're talking about the Dyatlov Pass incident. It's probably the most investigated wilderness death in the world. It's generated more than 70 published theories, a 2019 reopening by the Russian Prosecutor General's office, a 2021 paper in a Nature journal that used snow simulation code written for a Disney movie, and an ongoing lawsuit for the victims' families. Almost everything factual in this episode comes from, there's 4 primary sources. If you're like, I have never heard of this and I want to look more into it, we used the 1959 criminal case file. It's about 400 pages, declassified in the 1990s because the Soviet Union was very quiet about things.
It was buried for many, many years because of just the way the country was.
We use the hiker's own diaries and photographs, public domain since 2009, the autopsy protocols from Boris Vorozdensny, and the 2019 to 2020 investigation by the Russian Prosecutor General's office. So those are the primary sources if you want to go back and end up reading more of these.
This is a weird one. Have you ever heard of this case before?
I had heard of this.
Me too.
So shameless plug, and I am not paid by them, endorsed by them, or anything. My favorite podcasters are Dan and Lindsay Cummins. And Dan Cummins covered this on Time Suck.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I think I probably saw it on some YouTube video years back.
I do get to meet them, though, in September. I'm super excited. I've become friends with Lindsay. And
that's
I'm
rad.
really excited. So, shameless plug, their episodes, Time Suck and Scared to Death, also great podcasts.
Scared to Death is one of my favorites.
It's so good. So anyways, but yeah, so that's how I had heard of it. But when he mentioned it, I was like, I'm sorry, ¿por qué?
Yeah.
Like, what?
It's like, how have I not heard of this before?
Yeah.
It's a very strange one. Makes no sense.
No sense.
The Ural Mountains are one of the oldest ranges on the planet. The rock at their core and Archean are around 2 billion years old. The range itself was pushed up between roughly 300 and 250 million years ago when the continent of Laurussia collided with Kazakhstan and Siberia to assemble the supercontinent Pangaea. Everything that has happened to the Urals since has been erosion. The Alps are about 30 million years old and still sharp. The Urals are 10 times older and worn down to something closer to a spine than a wall. The highest peak in the entire 2,500-kilometer chain, Mount Narodanya, is 1,895 meters. That's shorter than a lot of ski resorts. That matters for this story because the terrain at Dyatlov Pass does not look dangerous. It looks like rolling tundra. There are no cliffs, no cornices, no obvious avalanche chutes. The slopes where the tent stood pitches at somewhere between 15 and 23 degrees, depending on who measured it and where. It is the kind of ground that reads as safe to a person standing on it, and that is one of the central problems of this case. The Urals are also the conventional boundary between Europe and Asia. This is a human decision, not a geological one. The line was proposed by the Swedish officer and geographer Philip Johann von Strahlenberg in 1730 and refined by Vasily Tatsyev, who happened to also be one of the founders of the city these hikers came from. Oh, that's interesting. Everything west of the watershed is Europe. Everything east is Asia. Obelisks mark the line all over Sverdlovsk Oblast, and people take photographs straddling them. The section we care about is the Northern Urals in Ivadelsky district at the top of Sverdlovsk Oblast, where it meets the Komi Republic and Perm Krai. It is boreal forest, taiga of spruce, fire, pine, and birch, thinning to a bald tundra above about 800 meters. Winters run from October to May. I'm surprised it's not yearly.
Right?
It's
like Wyoming.
Yeah, oh, God. Nights in February, minus 40. Ooh. Wind on the exposed slopes routinely hits 20 to 30 meters per second, which is 70 to 100 kilometers an hour sustained. That's crazy.
Wow. And also, just so you know, again, because we're metric, temperatures given unless they're listed in Fahrenheit are in Celsius.
Right, yeah, fair enough. There are two named summits in the story. Odotorten, 1,234 meters, is the one the group was trying to reach. And Kholat Syakhl, 1,096 meters on modern survey and marked as height 1079 on the Soviet military maps the group carried, is the one they died on. The pass between them, an unnamed saddle in 1959, is now called Dyatlov Pass after the group's leader. The people who named these mountains are the Mansi, historically Vogels in Russian sources. They are an Obyurk people, and the significant thing about the classification is who their linguistic relatives are. The Khanty, who live to the east, and the Hungarians, who live 2,500 miles to the west. Mansi, Khanty, and Hungarian are the three surviving Ugric languages. The split happened somewhere in the vicinity of 3,000 years ago, so that's been a minute.
Yeah, it's been a bit, you know?
Yeah. I was 23 when that happened.
It's been 87 years.
Dude, I'm feeling like that lady these days. It's not good. I got more lines.
You're too young to feel that old, Andy.
I got more lines on my face than a Tokyo road map. The Mansi are reindeer herders, hunters, and fishers, moving seasonally along the Lazva and Uspia, the Sazva, and the Ob. In 1959, there were roughly 6,000 of them. There are around 12,000 ethnic Mansi and fewer than 1,000 speakers of the Mansi language. It is classified as severely endangered. That's crazy to think about. That there's like a
languages are endangered.
Yeah,
and just how much a population can reduce.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we think about that so much. If we don't preserve things, we lose them.
Yeah,
and then you can't get it back.
It's so true. And that always kind of gets my brain going, like, what's been lost that we don't know about?
Oh, there's so much.
You know, or like...
So much.
Yeah, it's amazing. Their cosmology is layered in three. The upper world belongs to the Numitorum, the sky god, an old man with a golden staff who made the world and governs its order. The middle world is the earth, where people live, watched over by Mirsus Nikum. The name translates roughly as the man who surveys the world, who rides the sky on a winged horse and intercedes for humans. The lower world belongs to Kul Utyor, Numitorum's adversary, the source of sickness and death. And running through all three is Kholat Syakhl, the mother goddess, who assigns each person their lifespan at birth by notching it onto a sacred tree. Several things in Mansi practice are directly relevant to how this case was received in 1959. First, we have the bear. So the bear in Mansi belief is not an animal so much as a relative, a son of Numi Tortum, who was lowered to earth and broke the rules. My kind of person here. Rule breaker. Killing a bear required an apology, a ritual, and a multi-day festival where the hunters performed songs and mass dances to convince the bear's spirit that its death was not their fault. The bear's head was set on a table and fed. That's wild. Its eyes were covered with coins so it couldn't see who had done it. Second, sacred ground. Certain mountains, groves, lakes, and rivers bend are yapling, wholly restricted. Some are restricted to men only. Of course.
Of course.
Men only over
As
here.
As the Lord hath ordained.
This is my lake. I'm a man. Except he says that with more of a Russian accent.
Yeah.
Some are restricted entirely. Sacrificial cloths, coins, and cast metal figures were left at these sites, and a category of carved wooden idols called pupik stood at them. When Soviet ethnographers and later Soviet authorities came through this territory, these were among the first things destroyed. Thank you. Good job. Thank you.
Just always destroying stuff.
Hey, you know what?
Like sometimes we are so freaking cool, and sometimes we are the absolute worst.
And I lean towards worse most of the time.
Most of the time.
Third, the Menkfa. The Menkfa are giant forest beings in Mansi folklore, enormous, made of larch wood with pointed heads, sometimes described as having 7 fingers. I've been described that way too. And the oldest story is they are Numi Tortum's failed first attempt at making people. He carved humans out of larch, disliked the result, and tried to burn them. But they ran off into the forest and became the Menkfa. They are the owners of the forest. They are not evil in a Christian sense. They are large, dangerous, and territorial, and they eat people who are careless. Heroes in Mansi epic kill Menkfa repeatedly, and the Menkfa keep getting back up. You have to kill them in a specific number of times before they stay dead. God, that sounds exhausting. If you keep going northwest from Dyatlov Pass, about 100 kilometers into the Komi Republic, you reach a plateau where 7 stone pillars stand alone on a bald ridge, between 30 and 42 meters tall, weathered out of the surrounding rock over roughly 200 million years ago. The place is called Mampupunur. In Mansi, that translates as the small mountain of the idols. The story is that 7 giants came over the mountains to destroy the Mansi, and a Mansi shaman, or in some versions Numi Tortum directly, turned them to stone where they stood. The pillars are one of the 7 wonders of Russia, and in the Mansi telling, they are 7 petrified Menkfa. Ah, that's interesting. Okay.
So cool. The lore is so cool from Russia.
It really is. Lastly, in the fourth, the Golden Woman. From the 14th century onward, Russian and later European sources report legends of the Zulatai Baba, a golden idol in the shape of a woman, worshipped by the Ugric peoples somewhere in the forest beyond the Urals, moved constantly to keep it from Christian hands. It appears in the Novgorod Chronicles and Sigmund von Herbenstein's 1549 Notes on Muscovy and on 16th century Europe's maps of Tartary, drawn as standing female figure with a child. No one has ever found it. Expeditions have looked. That's the appeal. Always trying to find that missing object.
A really quick note on Kholat Syakhl. Syakhl is Mansi for mountain. Kholat is where people disagree on the translation a little bit. The standard translation is dead mountain, but it's not. It's more in the sense of it's barren. It doesn't have game. It's not good to hunt. You wouldn't be able to find anything to kill and eat up there. Is the closest to the direct Mansi translation. But sometimes later on, you'll see Mountain of the Dead come later. The widely reported story says Kholat Syakhl is the dead mountain because 9 Mansi died on it, and that number 9 is an eerie coincidence at the heart of the case. So there is lore around other people dying there, even though that's not directly what the words themselves kind of mean. The story has no documented existence in Mansi folklore before 1959, so it seems like this documented folklore story showed up after this happened.
Okay.
It appears in Russian popular writing about the case after the deaths, not before. Mansi flood legends do attach these peaks. Orton's real Mansi name is Kholat Syakhl, Goose Nest Mountain, attached to a story about a goose that survived the Great Flood on the lake below it. But the 9 Dead Mansi story is a folk artifact of the incident itself, not a prophecy of it. The conquest of Siberia starts with salt mining family and a Cossack. In 1558, Ivan the Terrible granted the Stroganov family enormous land concessions on the Kama River. The Stroganovs built forts, ran salt works, and by the 1570s were being raided by the Siberian Khanat under Khan Kuchum. In 1581 or 1582, they hired a Cossack Ottoman named Yermak Timofeyevich and roughly 840 men who went east over the Urals with firearms against an army that mostly didn't have those firearms. Yermak took Kuchum's capital, Iskar. Yermak himself drowned in 1585, reportedly dragged under by the weight of a chainmail coat that Ivan the Terrible had given him as a gift. It was the One Ring. It was the One Ring that drug him under the water.
Absolutely.
Siberia stayed taken. In 1597, a peasant named Artemy Babinov cut a road over the Urals, and in 1598, the Russians founded Verkhoturya, at its eastern end. For 165 years, Verkhoturya was the only legal gate into Siberia. Every person and every load of goods had to pass its customs house. It made the town, of course, very, very wealthy. And then in 1763, the government opened a southern route into the town, and the town went quiet and got very religious instead. And it holds relics of Simeon of Verkhoturya and became a pilgrimage center. It is called the spiritual capital of the Urals, and it still has a Kremlin, the smallest one in Russia. Then came iron. In 1701, on Peter the Great's order, the state ironworks opened at Nevyansk, and Peter promptly handed it to the Tula blacksmith named Nikita Demidov, whose family would spend the 18th century becoming one of the wealthiest industrial dynasties of Europe. Nikita's son, Akinfi Demidov, built a leaning tower in Nevyansk in the 1720s, 57.5 meters, tilting about 2 meters off vertical, with a lightning rod on top that predates Franklin's, and a room inside where the acoustics carry a whisper from one corner to the diagonal opposite corner, but nowhere else. So it's one of those, have you ever been kind of in one of those fun rooms where things just seem a little bit off?
Yeah.
So in this one, you can stand opposite corners of the room, and if you whisper here, you can only hear it diagonally over here.
Dude,
you
that's
can't
so
hear it over
weird.
here. It's the way
weird.
acoustics were built. Yeah.
Oh,
The
God.
persistent local legend, of course, is that Afinki minted counterfeit silver in the basements, and when an imperial inspection was announced, he flooded the basement with workers still in them. There's no proof of that, but again, it's another legend of the region. In 1723, two men, the mining administrator Vasily Tatichev and the Dutch-German engineer George Wilhelm de Gennen, dammed the Iset River and built ironworks fortress they named Yekaterinburg after Peter's wife. What was her name? Oh, the future Catherine the First. Oh, that must just be, Yekaterin must be Russian for Catherine. I was like, what is her name? Okay, that makes sense. It was a factory that had a city attached to it, not the other way around, and that has never really stopped being true.
Yeah, I think Catherine's like Katerina or something like that.
Gold turned up in 1745 when a peasant named Yurafi Markov found it near Shartash and set off Russia's first gold rush. Emeralds turned up in 1831. Malachite, jasper, rhodonite, platinum, and every kind of iron ore came out of these hills for 200 years, and the men who dug it out built a body of folklore that is now the single most recognizable thing about Ural culture. The Russian miners' folklore of the Urals was collected and rewritten in the 1930s by Pavel Botsov, a Sverdlovsk writer, in 1939 called The Malachite Box. It's the reason every child in this region grows up knowing these figures and these stories. The central one is the Kazika Mednoy Gari, the mistress of the Copper Mountain. She appears to miners underground as a woman dressed in a dress of malachite that moves like water, or as a green lizard with a small crown. She owns the ore. She decides who finds the vein and who doesn't. She can make a craftsman's hands better than any living man's, and the price is that he will never be satisfied with the world above ground again. Her suitors either come back changed or they don't come back. The rest of the cast of these stories is the great snake Polaz, who moves gold underground and can shift a deposit overnight out of spite. His daughters, the Golden Hair, and the Snake Sisters. The Onevushka Pukakushka, a little dancing girl of fire who appears over a spot where gold lies. And the Silver Hoof, a deer that stamps gemstones out of the ground with one silver front foot. Every one of these stories runs on kind of the same logic, the same storyline. It's the worldview of these hikers grew up inside. So they would have known these stories. The mountain is a person. It's a living being. The mountain owns what's inside it, and the mountain gets to decide. Reverence keeps you alive. Greed and carelessness do not.
Interesting. A lot of crazy just lore there.
It's amazing the
Snake
stories
Sisters,
that
I know
women
them.
or
I'm just
women
kidding.
like. I always find it interesting though. Like women are often like the gatekeepers to wealth and discovery. So often, like even like you look at the legend of King Arthur, it's a woman, the Lady of the Lake, like gives him the sword or whatever.
I'm trying to remember the actual one and not Monty Python.
Yeah, I
here
know.
real quick, sorry.
We're supposed to follow you because some Todd gave you a sword.
Exactly.
It's interesting, right? Because you look at the lore, and it's so common, really, since humans left animism, where it was kind of this worship of all things and in things, and it was always masculine and feminine. And then like the gods start becoming male.
Of course.
And then but women are like these gatekeepers to like wealth and success. And it's some lake tart throws you a sword, and now you're the king of the country.
That's great. We referenced that so much on this.
God.
So sorry, you guys. Like,
so
not
good.
again.
I love it. I love Monty Python so much. It's got so much good lore.
We'll have to do that on Patreon. Do a viewing.
We should do a
where y'all
Patreon viewing of Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and then later we can do the Life of Brian.
And then people are like, "What does this have to do with anything they talk about?" Quiet, you. Let us have a little bit of fun in our lives. So, okay. 3 things happened to this specific region in the 50 years before our story, and all 3 are load-bearing. On the night of July 16th into the 17th of 1918, in the basement of a merchant's house in Yekaterinburg belonging to the engineer Nikolai Ipatiev, Bolshevik guards shot Tsar Nicholas II, his wife Alexandra, their 5 children, and 4 attendants. The bodies were driven out to an abandoned mine shaft at a site called Ganina Yama, then moved and buried in a clearing called Porosnikov Log. The remains were located in 1979 and kept secret, exhumed in 1991. 2 more bodies were found in 2007. The Ipatiev house was demolished in 1977 on a Politburo instruction, executed by the regional party boss, a construction engineer from Sverdlovsk named Boris Yeltsin. You might have heard of.
You might know that name.
I don't know who she is.
Like, who's she?
In 1924, the city was renamed Sverdlovsk after Yakov Sverdlov, who signed off on the executions.
Crazy.
So, yeah, really.
That's some more lore. I mean, the lore of Anastasia.
Yeah, and that's, man, that'd be something to dive into, because
the history
there were
of the
so
Romanovs.
many people that would come up. Rasputin, how come we haven't done him? That maniac.
No, dude was a menace.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Just absolutely insane.
Oh, dude, yeah.
And guaranteed he's somebody's sleep paralysis demon now.
Oh, yeah.
Like, has to be.
Yeah. I'd be shocked if he wasn't. Anyway, in 1937, at the height of the Great Terror, the NKVD established the Ivdelog in the Ivdel corrective labor camp headquartered at Ivdel, 400 kilometers north of Sverdlovsk. Its business was timber. Prisoners were distributed through the taiga in outposts and logging points, cutting wood for Soviet construction. Political prisoners, criminal convicts, and deported ethnic groups. That sounds lovely.
Right. That sounds familiar.
Oh, God. Including Volga Germans and Germans deported from Ukraine who were formed into labor brigades in 1942, were worked in these forests. As it peaked, the Ivdelog system held tens of thousands of people.
Like tens of thousands.
Yeah. That's
so many.
That's so crazy. That is what the settlements in this story are. Vizai, the last inhabited place on the road north, was a camp settlement. The logging camp they stayed in on January 26th, everyone called it 41st District or the 41st Quarter, was a working timber outpost. Second Northern, where the 10th members of the party turned back, was an abandoned geological prospector settlement. Ushma on the Lazva was built as a camp point in 1938. This whole landscape, every road, every barrack, every stretch of cleared forest for hundreds of kilometers in any direction was built by prisoners, essentially. When the search for the missing hikers began in February 1959, one of the reasons it could be mounted so quickly is that the Ivdel camp administration had aircraft, radios, trucks, dogs, and manpower already in place.
Yeah, because just like keeping track of your prisoners.
Absolutely.
So they had all the resources up there.
That's so crazy. And one thing I was going to comment on earlier, the Ural Mountains, the translation basically being the dead mountain. Mm-hmm. Let's go up there.
Yep.
Hey, where are you guys going? Oh, we're going to go hike the dead mountain, the mountain of the dead.
That's what we do. That's what we do as humans. Why are you climbing that? Because it's there.
Not me. Not me. I'm down at base camp or following around in the recovery vehicle.
Are there snacks?
Yeah, I'm not climbing that. That sounds exhausting. Anyway. After the war, the Urals became the physical core of the Soviet nuclear program. Maybe you've heard of it. On the reasoning that it was far from any border as you can get. The plutonium production complex at Mayak, near the closed city then called Cherblansky 40, produced the material for the first Soviet bomb. Sverdlovsk 44 enriched uranium. Sverdlovsk 45 built weapon components. None of these places appeared on maps. Their residents' mail went to post office box numbers. Yeah, it's like you don't really want to be broadcasting.
Yeah,
it is.
Don't want to let people know where your stuff is.
Crazy times, Cold War. On September 29th, 1957, a cooling system failed on a tank of liquid radioactive waste at Mayak, and the tank exploded, releasing an estimated 70 to 80 tons of radioactive material and contaminating an area of roughly 20,000 square kilometers.
Mm-hmm.
It is the third worst nuclear accident in history behind Chernobyl and Fukushima. 10,000 people were eventually evacuated. The Soviet government did not acknowledge it until 1989.
Mm-hmm.
We don't worry about that over there.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked that they would do that.
It is known as the Kistum disaster, named for the nearest town that actually existed on a map. Two members of the Dyatlov group worked inside this system. One of them was of the Kistum cleanup. Sverdlovsk in 1959 was a closed city. Foreigners could not enter. I don't think many foreigners could probably enter the Soviet Union. It
was a little tricky to get in and out.
So I've been told. It had 1.5 million people, a Polytechnical Institute with 20,000 students, an opera house, and an industrial base that had absorbed hundreds of factories evacuated eastward ahead of the Wehrmacht in 1941. The Hermitage's collection spent the war in the basement of the Sverdlovsk Art Gallery. 14 months after our story ends, on May 1st, 1960, an American U-2 flown by Francis Gary Powers would be shot down over the oblast. That tells you what the air defense posture up here was like.
Mm-hmm. And then let's talk about Soviet sport tourism, because that's the reason that this group of people were out here in the first place. Mm-hmm. Tourism in the Soviet Union did not mean vacation. It meant an organized, graded, certified athletic discipline of long-distance, self-supported travel on foot, on skis, by raft, or by bicycle. This is the most Soviet thing that I can think of. They're like, time off? No, you're gonna ski 100 miles,
this
and then you're gonna army crawl.
Test, comrade.
Yeah,
you're going to walk up the mountain.
I can never remember who did it, but there was a comedian talking about how, like, Russians speaking Russian, like, totally fine. Yeah. But as soon as they speak English, he's like, and I'm scared now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. So,
it was run through trade unions, sports societies, and institute clubs. Routes were rated categories from 1 to 3, later expanded to 6. To lead a category 3 route, you had to have completed the lower categories, been vetted, and had your route approved on paper. So this was not just like recreational hikers. These were people this was a structured format. You had to have certifications to be able to go on certain categories of events.
There's nothing recreational about the Soviet Union.
Nothing.
You want fun, comrade?
You shall not recreate. You shall not rest. That's German. Sorry.
Well, whatever.
You know, it's like, kind of like a hybrid.
Yeah. That sounds like a random World War II bad guy from a movie.
Right? Like Nazi number 6.
Yeah, exactly.
The paperwork was called a route book, or a Marschrutnaya Nitska. It's listed participants, the route, the control points, the date by which the group had to telegraph the sponsoring sports club to confirm they were out. If the telegram didn't come, then there would be a search. So it was kind of a safety mechanism of, hey, you have to be back by this date. You have to telegram us. If you don't, we're going to assume you're missing. So that's smart. Huh. By the mid-1950s, the Ural Polytechnical Institute's hiking club was one of the strongest in the USSR. Its members were engineering students in a hard science city. They treated wilderness travel as a way an engineer treats anything, right? They modified the gear, they would weigh everything, they tracked everything, built their own stoves. And of course, they were also young people, flirted, argued, sang, kept diaries, and also had fun doing a lot of this. Because they kept diaries, we know an unusual amount about the 9 people who would die that night.
I forgot they kept diaries.
1959. 10 people boarded the train out of Sverdlovsk on January 23rd, 1959. The route book had been approved for 11 people. People dropped out in the weeks beforehand. That's normal. What we do know is the following. So we have Igor Alexeyevich Dyatlov, born January 13th, 1936 in Pervauralsk. There we go. Sverdlovsk Oblast. Yes, that's words. A factory town on the Chusovaya River, about 40 kilometers west of Sverdlovsk, right on the Europe-Asia line. He was 23. His father was Alexey Alexeyevich Dyatlov. And if I remember correctly, that middle name, the Vich, is like, it's the equivalent of kind of son of.
Yeah, I believe you're right. I remember hearing that. So
it's like Alexey, son of Alexey Dyatlov. So his dad's name. Obviously, also Alexei.
I hate to see how far back it goes. It just keeps repeating.
Right, and it just keeps going back. He had an older brother, Mitsyov, and a sister, Rufina, called Rufa. Dyatlov was the kind of child who takes things apart. Makes sense that he would be an engineer. In 1951, at 15, he built a working portable radio receiver. In 1951, in a provincial Soviet town from parts he scrounged, he was already hiking with the Ural Polytechnic mountaineering crowd before he finished the 7th grade, brought along by his brother. He entered UPI's 5th faculty, radio engineering, and by January 1959, he was a 5th-year student, months from getting his degree. In his 2nd year, he designed and assembled a shortwave transmitter that the club carried on its 1956 Cheyenne Mountains trip, a student group in the Siberian backcountry with working radio contact. He built the group's collapsible sheet metal stove, a hanging design that could be suspended from a tent ridge so it didn't melt into the snow.
This guy's handy.
Handy and
Dang,
smart.
man.
He was also a good photographer. And he was, according to every account left behind, the most technically capable person in the club. Personality, he was known as steady, not loud. Colleagues used words like dependable, physically fit, even-tempered. There's a small anecdote that does recur in memoirs. A hiker on one of his trips confessed to having secretly eaten a tin of the group's condensed milk, expecting to be reamed out, and Dyatlov didn't raise his voice. He said the cost would be settled up when they got back, didn't make a big fuss about it, seemed to be a really even-keel guy. He was the leader of this. He had led 8 major treks. He had a Category 2 certification, and this trip was his qualification for Category 3. He was in love with Zinaida Kolmogorova. There it is. Everyone in the club appears to have known that. It was not straightforwardly reciprocated. Zinaida Alexievna Kolmogorova, or Zina. I'm going to be calling her Zina for the rest of this. Born on January 12th, 1937, in the village of Keremkolova, Kamensky district, and then part of the Chelyabinsk region, and later the Sverdlovsk Oblast. I swear, it feels like I'm making them up, and I'm not. She was 22. Her father, Alexei Ivanovich, was a disabled war veteran who worked for the Kamensky-Uralsky Metalworks. Her mother, Varvara Vasilyevna, was also disabled, and her 3 sisters, Tamara, Galia, and Yutsya. This was not a family with money, obviously, especially having disabled parents. Zina worked from childhood. She went through vocational training at a radio factory and finished secondary school at an evening school for working youth before she ever got near a university. She got into UPI anyway, into radio engineering, and by 1959, she was also in her 5th year, spending her summers doing practical certification back at the radio plant in Kamensk.
You know, her father being a disabled war vet, imagine the stuff he saw in World War II.
Oh my God.
Horrors. I mean, just think about that.
And we still have, there's not many left. There's still World War II vets alive, very few, but I can't imagine living through something like that. When I was growing up in fifth grade, yeah, it would have been, not 5th grade. I lied. It would have been 7th grade. My Sunday school teacher was a World War II vet.
Wow. Okay.
A D-Day World War II vet. His name was Oliver Carlson.
Yeah.
And I remember him being so loving and so joyful and so kind. And I don't know how someone could experience something like that and be okay.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
I don't know how you look at so many vets, unfortunately struggle with, PTSD and suicide and addiction. And I can't say I blame them. I don't think I could see things like that and come back and not be completely fractured.
No, not at all.
I don't have, it's unfortunate that we, it took us so long to recognize the trauma of war. And even now, not fund the VA properly enough to actually take care of them.
Yeah. Well, why do that?
Yeah,
you ask them to do all this stuff.
What incredible sacrifice. So if you have served in the military, thank you for that. Or if you have parents or grandparents that served, thank you to your family. Because I truly cannot imagine. And then he's with the Red Army. So I can't imagine what they saw.
And that was a whole other level.
That was a whole other level of shit.
The whole pushing back the Nazis and all of that stuff. They didn't even have enough weapons for everybody. If you ever see the opening of Enemy at the Gates where they're storming the Stalingrad, that's how it was, man. They're like, oh, the guy with the rifle, where's my gun? When he gets killed, pick it up and keep going forward.
Grab his gun and keep running.
And then if they turned around, their own guys would shoot them.
Mm-hmm. There was no retreat.
Yeah, Stalin was forward.
We can probably find a way to do an episode that includes the Night Witches. Because the Red Army had female pilots who were 18 to 22. They got trained for 6 months and were badass. Mm-hmm. They were so good. It's one of my favorite historical stories that maybe you've never heard.
But it's interesting, though, too, because as the Red Army pushes the Nazis back, they don't give those countries back, and that's why we have this whole massive Soviet Union at the end in 1945 after the fall of Berlin. But that's a whole topic for another day anyway.
That's a different time.
Sorry about that.
Everyone who wrote about Zina afterward wrote about her energy. One club member called her the engine of the university.
Whoa.
Yuri Yudin, the one who lived, said everywhere she went, she filled the place with the pleasant breath of her soul, which is a really beautiful thing to say about somebody. She held a seat on the hiking club's bureau and chaired its qualifying commission, the body that decided whether other people were experienced enough to be allowed to lead a given trip. She had done 8 treks, led 2 of them herself, and also not just to lead the trips, but you also couldn't go on the trip unless you were qualified for it or were qualifying for a next level. And she had been on 4 Category 2 expeditions with Dyatlov. On one earlier trip, she was bitten by a viper. She refused to have any of her pack redistributed to other people, and she carried her full load out despite being bitten.
I never would have. For some reason, I hear viper in Russia, and the two just break my brain. Like, I didn't think you had snakes over there. You know?
Her romantic situation, because it's part of the lore here, going into this trip was complicated. She dated Yuri Doroshenko. It had ended around December of 1958 at his initiative. In a letter to her friend Lydia Grigorieva, she wrote plainly that she was still in love with him. Then Doroshenko joined the expedition. Her surviving letters to Igor Dyatlov, who was in love with her, are entirely about logistics. So it seems like, you know, she got broken up with by her ex, who's now on the trip.
Ugh.
Igor's in love with her, but not reciprocated. She's keeping it professional.
It's like a 90s soap opera.
It is. It's like a coming of age movie.
It really is.
Yuri Nikolaevich Doroshenko. This is the ex. Born January 29th, 1938. He was 21. He turned 21 4 days before the group left the last inhabited settlement. 4th year radio engineering at UPI. His family also had very little. His mother lived at Yubinsk in Kazakhstan and had been putting money aside to buy him a warm winter coat, and she had not managed to do before he left. So he did not have appropriate winter gear.
Dang.
He was the tallest person in the group. He wore glasses sometimes. He was described as reserved and impulsive, so he could be both, and was known around the hiking club as one who didn't scare very easily. That reputation came from a specific incident on an earlier trip in eastern Siam. A large brown bear came toward the group's camp. Doroshenko went at it with a geologist's hammer, the only thing that he had handy, and the bear left. He didn't chase it far. He didn't need to. I can see why Zina was, attracted to this, right?
Good Lord.
That would have gotten me rolling in my early 20s.
My God.
They sat up. Now I'm just like, dude, that was dumb. What'd you do that for? They sat up talking that night about their families. They started dating when they got back to Sverdlovsk. So he chased off a bear and he got the girl. He came to visit her family in Kamensk, Uralsky, and then in December of 1958, he would end the relationship.
Show off.
He habitually underdressed for the weather. It seems in part because his parents could not afford to get him what he needed. In a city where winter runs to minus 30, he would wear a jacket.
It's a little cold out. Let me throw my coat on.
I just see, because it is, I feel like, and I know that some of this is Hollywood depictions, but the actual Russian people I've ever met, men and women, are so fucking badass.
Oh, yeah.
They're so tough.
Oh, yeah.
Like, sometimes I'm like, are you okay?
Yeah.
Are you sure you're okay?
Yeah, they're very, very stoic.
Yeah, very stoic, very tough.
They
just
are.
hard as nails. And the women just as much as the men.
Yep.
Just absolute badasses. Lyudmila Alexandrovna Dubinina, or Lyudia, born on May 12, 1938, on Kegostrov, an island in the northern Dubinina in Russia's far northwest. She was 20. She was the youngest member of the group. Her father, Alexander Nikolaevich, ran a logging operation. Her mother, Iya Vladimirovna, ran a kindergarten. She had a younger brother named Igor. The family moved constantly for her father's transfers, Kegostrov, then Krasnogorsk, and then Sverdlovsk. She went to school number 13 in Sverdlovsk and then entered UPI in 1955, studying construction economics, civil engineering, and urban construction. She was an athlete and competed for the Institute. She was a committed Komsomol member and was the group's photographer on this particular trip. The story that follows is Lyudia Dubinina is from 1957 trek in eastern Siam. A lot of these stories that they all went to these same regions. A hunter accompanying the group discharged a rifle by accident and shot her in the leg.
Dang, man.
She was 200 kilometers from anything. She finished the trip. In February 1958, she earned her Category 2 certification in the Northern Urals. A fellow hiker described her as wise, firm, thoughtful, and fair, and noted specifically that she paid attention to the beginners, the people who were struggling and embarrassed about it. So she seems to be very kind. Her diary in the days before the group left records that she was angry and upset about something. She doesn't say what. It's the last written record of her interior life. She died 3 months and 10 days before her 21st birthday.
Dang, man.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sad.
that sucks.
And we'll get into, I just wanted to make sure that like I introduce everyone. So then when we actually tell the story, you at least have a little bit of background about who's who.
And we will be using the short names.
And we will be using
their
nicknames.
Thank God.
Georgy Alexeyevich, Krivanishika, or Yuri, born February 7th, 1935 in Zugris at the Donetsk region of Ukraine. He was 23, 5 days short of being 24. His legal name was Georgy. Everyone called him Yuri, a common Slavic substitution for the Greek Georgios. And two names have been kind of tangled. So if you are reading something later and you don't see Yuri, his name is Georgy. His parents were educated and connected. His father was a chief construction engineer of the Belarusk hydroelectric station. Family kept a large apartment in central Sverdlovsk and was permanently full of students and hikers their son brought home. He studied construction and hydraulics at UPI and graduated in 1957. Then he was assigned to Mayak, a plutonium complex at Chelyabinsk 40 on September 29th of 1957. Months after he arrived, the waste tank exploded. Krivanschenko was among personnel on the cleanup. He was a young engineer decontaminating one of the worst nuclear accidents in history at a facility that officially did not exist, at a town that was not on the map. He was the funny one. The memoir says some version of he was the life of the party, the in-house clown. He was the one playing music and singing. He did the bits. Seems to be a really fun person to be around. And 2 years after the Kishtim incident, his clothing would be tested for radiation, and the result would produce one of the most durable conspiracy theories in Russian history.
We'll get into that.
Which we will get into that. I'm on my way. Going through these names, Rustam Vladimirovich Slobodin, or Rustic, born on January 11th, 1936. He was 23. Both his parents were university professors. They were working in Central Asia when he was born. They gave him a Bashkir name instead of a Russian one, a detail that made him slightly harmlessly kind of exotic in the lecture halls. He graduated from UPI in 1958 and at the time of the trip was employed at Enterprise PO Box 10, a Soviet mailing address designation meaning a classified facility. He was a serious athlete, a long-distance runner, physically the hardest person in the group, and he was very quiet. People described him as honest, decent, and quiet, a man of very few words. In the summer of 1958, he and his father walked a 300-kilometer traverse of the Tian Shan from Funs to Andijan, and to visit his older brother, Konstantin. Okay, so it's the Russian Constantine.
Mm-hmm.
That's a long way through a very empty country with your dad, which, long walk. He played the mandolin. He would bring it with him on hikes. You can see the camping videos. The camping videos with someone's got a guitar or a ukulele or something that they bring with them.
They have a mandolin.
Right.
Minus 10 points to mana and charisma.
Minus 10 points.
I'm just kidding.
Nikolai Vladimirovich Thibeaux-Brignol, or Kolya. Born July 5th, 1935, in Osiniki, which is now the Kemerovo Oblast. He was 23. His name is French, and the reason is that in Siberia is a straight line through kind of Soviet history. His father, Vladimir Iosovich Thibeaux-Brignol, came from a family of French mining engineers. The father was trained at Freiburg Mining Academy in Germany. In 1931, Vladimir was arrested for participation in a political organization that did not exist and sentenced to 10 years in the Gulag.
Oh,
He was sent east. Yep, Nikolai was born in a camp settlement.
Oh, my God.
Right. Nikolai started school in Helsinki in 1943. The family got to Kemerovo in 1946. He finished secondary school in 1953, the year Stalin died, and his family understood it. The reason his application to Ural Polytechnical Institute was accepted at all. The son of a convicted political prisoner did not, as a general rule, get into engineering school until before March of 1953. So when Stalin died, he was able to get in. He graduated from UPI's construction department on June of 1958 with top marks on his thesis, specializing in industrial and civil construction, went to work as a foreman for Sverdlovsk Construction Trust. He was another funny one. He was described as energetic, inventive, relentlessly joking, kept the morale up when bad weather would set in. He was unusually good at topographic sketching, a specific and useful skill on these unmapped routes. Between 1956 and 58, he did 5 major treks across Russian mountain ranges. His father had spent a decade in the camps, which is crazy, and he would die, on a mountain in a district built by those camps. Which
That's insane.
Sad.
That is sad,
And crazy. Alexander Sergeyevich Kolevatov, or Sasha.
How many people are on this expedition?
I know. There's so many.
It
We're
just
almost there.
doesn't stop.
We're almost there. Born November 16th, 1934 in Sverdlovsk. He was 24. He was the only boy among 5 or 6 children. Sources are a little bit differing, but mostly sisters. His father worked as a financial director at factories inside the Gulag system at Tavda. That is one of those Soviet biographical facts that kind of sits there without further comment. When Kolatov was small, the job meant status and provisions. During the war, his father died under a train in circumstances that were never made clear. The family kind of fell off a cliff. Like his mom became sick after his dad died, and rationing that followed is recorded in the family's own account in grams. We're talking 200 grams of bread per day for people.
Good Lord.
After the war, they came back to Sverdlovsk. He was a mediocre student who was very good at German and English. He went to technical college, pulled his grades up, and was able to join the Komsomol at 18. On graduation, he was assigned to a classified nuclear research institute in Moscow, the Ministry of Medium Machine Building, which is just, I love Soviet names for things. The Ministry of Medium Machine Building.
Also, their use of numbers is quite humorous.
It's like, what? This was the euphemism the Soviet state used for its atomic weapons complex, and later the Research Institute of Inorganic Materials, producing feedstock for the nuclear industry. He was paid 900 to 1,000 rubles a month, which was well above average. He had free housing in a good part of Moscow and ran the institute's shooting section and organized its hike. He would later transfer back to Sverdlovsk before this hike that he went on. Semyon Alexeyevich Zolotaryov.
They all have the same middle name.
Another Sasha. Alexei must have been like the banger name in like the 1890s.
Probably.
Because all their dads are named Alexei. Born February 2nd, 1921, the Cossack village of Udobnaya was in Kuban and the Northern Caucasus. There's the Caucasus Mountains, or the Caucasus. The village registry records his birth at March 1st. The family used February 2nd. I don't know why that is there, but that's just, I wanted to point out that distinction.
That's weird.
He was 38, so he was the oldest of the group by far. His father was a feldsher, or a paramedic. He served in the Soviet Armed Forces from October 1941 to May of 1946. Yeah.
Rough couple years there.
Yeah. He was a combat engineer, a pontoon and bridge builder, a job you do under fire and near water. So he was in it. He came out
couple years there.
Right. He came out with 4 decorations. He became a candidate member of the Communist Party in 1944 and served as the Komsomol organizer at a battalion level. After the war, he tried twice to get through military engineering school, Moscow in 1945, downsized out from under him. Then Leningrad in 1946, the program got shut down. He gave up on the military track, took a degree from the Institute of Physical Education in Minsk around 1950 to 51. He then worked as a sports instructor at the Artybash tourist base in Altai and became a senior tourism instructor at the Kuruvka outside of Sverdlovsk. So he was a professional. He was not a student on an adventure. He was credentialed. Guiding was his job. So he was really kind of in charge. So we have Igor, who's trying to get his category 3 like certification.
Right.
But this Sasha, so Semyon, is well qualified. Like this is what he does. So he is unmarried in this. He introduced himself to the group as Sasha, not Semyon. Sasha, a very common nickname for men. Some of them found that odd enough to like note it though. He didn't introduce himself by his name. He had a gold cap tooth, and he had tattoos, which was unusual for a Soviet sports instructor of that generation.
Wow, tattoos, huh? Mm-hmm. Wow, that had to be really weird just in general in those
years. At that time. And they have generated an entire Academy of Secondary Literature, recorded on his body a 5-pointed star, the year 1921, the name Teha, the letter C, string of characters transcribed in the autopsy as a Russian word I am not going to pronounce, and I wasn't able to find out what it means. I don't think anyone's really sure why he had that specific list of letters. The most sober reading is that these were wartime and camp-adjacent tattoos of some kind.
That would make sense.
Common among men kind of his cohorts. Maybe they were initials of friends and units.
Yeah, maybe.
Why he was on this trip at all is a live question. So he joined the group late. He gave family reasons for wanting a shorter route than the one he'd originally planned. Documentation in the file shows the party committee had a hand in placing him with the group. He needed that trip also for a professional certification, even though he had way more experience than some of the others, which is probably the reason he was put with them, is he was trying to get that professional certification. And they said, just go with this group and hike. Because again, this is not fun tourism. This is structured, competitive Here's your outline and your checkboxes.
We
tourism.
don't do fun, comrade.
We don't do fun, comrade. Yuri Yefimovich Yudin, triple Y, born on July 19th, 1937. He was 21, fourth-year engineering student at UPI. He had hiked the LT with Dyatlov, again, Igor Dyatlov, who this would be named after, in the summer of 1958. He had rheumatism and a genital heart condition, and he was the 10th person on this trip. He is the only one who would survive.
That's so weird. It was a lot of people.
That's a lot of people.
Can we get a round of applause for her with all these names?
You can clap. It's fine.
Yes, clap. Thank you. Yes.
That was some of those. I would stare at the name and just be like,
hey, at least you could get it. I just stare there and start drooling. What's that say? My God, man, that was insane. But you know what?
Should be easier from here on out because we have nicknames now.
Thank God. I'm gonna start crying. Thank God. But you know what? After we upload this, there's gonna be one person. At least I know one, you're out
but
there.
Specifically,
that's gonna comment. Those names. That's not how you say his name.
I literally have like the pronunciations in front of me. I'm just like, slow it down, read the syllables.
That's not it.
And actually, before we go into the actual incident, the actual story, and how absolutely freaking weird this is, especially with people who had so much wilderness training and background.
Makes no sense. So the plan, as filed in the route book approved by the Sverdlovsk City Committee of the Physical Culture and Sport. On these names,
I love how
man.
they really keep the names concise, you know? Really efficient.
They're not a very whimsical people is what I'm deducing from these things. Even some of the places they work.
Union didn't tolerate whimsy.
No. Some of these places too. Where do you work, comrade? Oh, I'm at the, 43. It's like,
It's like, what?
It's like, wow, that sounds enjoyable. It's not. But anyway. So 300 kilometers on skis through the northern Urals in roughly 16 days. North from Vizhai, summiting Odorotin and the Mount Oyoko Chukor and back out. Easy. Get in, get out. Cakewalk. We're not having fun here, right? Category 3, 16 days in February above 61 degrees north, self-supported. They carried a 4-meter tent made from 2 smaller tents sewn together, a UPI hiking club modification, Dyatlov's hanging stove, skis, ski poles, an ice axe, a saw, felt boots and ski boots, wool, quilted jackets, of course, a mandolin.
Have to have one.
Or 2. We can get a jam session going. 5 cameras among them, and food calculated by weight for the days. So January 23rd in Sverdlovsk, the group met at the Sverdlovsk railway station in the evening. Krivoshenko was picked up by the police in the station for singing and collecting money in a hat.
He was busking.
And he was released. The diaries recorded as funny at the time. They took the train north. That's just what a way to get started.
Right. You get arrested your first day.
Where's Krivoshenko? Oh, he got arrested.
He was singing too loud, dude.
You know what? Too much whimsy.
Yeah.
They came and got him.
Turns out the police chief didn't like Taylor Swift.
Oh my God. Oh my. She's my favorite. She's so phenomenal.
I'm so sorry.
Can you imagine them singing Love Story with those mandolins? That's my idea of hell.
Mine's Bob Dylan, but you already knew that.
Oh, yeah. They were singing Bob Dylan.
With
their mandolins. No wonder why they... Well, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here. Yeah. That's why this story goes the way it does. They sang too much Bob Dylan and somebody didn't like it. So on January 24th, they reached Surov at 7 in the morning. The station wouldn't let them wait inside. A station employee whose name the diaries record only as a woman who wouldn't let them sit down. Thank God they didn't write her name down.
Right.
I don't have to try and pronounce it. She wouldn't let them sit down. They threw them out for singing. This is a recurring problem with these people.
Get in trouble for singing on day 2 as well.
You know what? This group
I bet
right
this
here.
lady was a real blast at parties.
Oh yeah.
Real blast.
This sounds like a group of troublemakers, if you ask me. They went to school number 41, again, no whimsy, nearby, and spent the day with the children there. Zena, in particular, spent hours with a room of small kids who did not want the hikers to leave. Somebody wrote in the diary that the children cried when they went. The evening, they took the train to Ivdel. So, January 25th, they arrived at Ivdel around 7 in the morning and slept on the floor of the station. A bus took them north to Vizhai, the last inhabited settlement on the road. Arriving in the afternoon, they stayed the night in a hostel there and went to the local cinema. The film they saw was Symphony in Gold. Vizhai was a camp settlement. The diaries know that the conversations they had with locals, and not without much comment, the number of former prisoners around. Ooh, interesting. So on January 26th, a truck took them further north on the back of an open flatbed in a hard wind to the logging outpost called 41st District, a working timber camp of loggers, some of whom were serving out or had several sentences. The group arrived, was given space in a barracks, and spent the evening with the workers. This is one of the last happy days in the record. There was a worker there they nicknamed the Beard, who quoted poetry at them. There, of course, was singing.
So much singing.
Mandolin shredding, singing. Krivoshenko played. The hiker's diaries recorded an argument about whether love exists.
Relatable.
What's love got to do? Anyway, on this truck ride, Yuri Yudin's back began to hurt. On January 27th, a horse and sledge carried the group's packs 24 kilometers up the Lasva River to the second northern Vitory Severny, an abandoned geological prospecting settlement of collapsing empty houses. The hikers skied alongside. Yudin came with them, hoping to find rock samples in the abandoned workings, and his sciatic nerve inflammation got dramatically worse on the way. That is no joke. That stuff
Sciatic pain
hurts.
is awful.
They picked a house with a roof and slept in it. At least it had a roof this time.
And you can't get thrown out for singing.
Or mandolin shredding. January 28th, in the morning of January 28th, Yuri Yudin could not carry a pack. He described it later. When we drove in the back of the truck, there was a strong draft. I reached second northern, and then it got even worse. He redistributed his food and gear among the others. Ludya gave him a small stuffed bear as a parting gift, a mascot, the kind of thing you hand someone as a joke. He kept it for the rest of his life. Wow. There are photographs of this goodbye. In one of them, Yudin is embracing Ludya, and everyone is laughing. That's so good times there.
Yeah.
9 people put their skis on and went up the Lasva. Yudin rode the horse and sledge back to 41st District.
Save his life. That sciatic pain saved his life.
Weird when you think about that.
Weird. I love these ideas, and you can see, like, you can find pictures of them and stuff. Like, even growing up in an environment like the Soviet Union, or you look at, like, war-torn places, I'm always so amazed at humans' ability to, like, find joy.
Yeah.
And often it almost seems like more joy. You know, I was reading, and I cannot remember who the author was, but it was talking about, like, Irish art and how the Irish, because of the suffering that they went through for so long, like, that's why music is such a critical part of their culture in many ways, and the joy that they have in music. So it just makes me happy to see them smiling, even in, you know, some of them are like the children of prisoners who went to the gulag, and some of them are, you know, super impoverished, and they live in the Soviet Union, and they still finding joy and finding happiness in it. Yeah,
I guess that whole practicing gratitude thing, you know, there might be something to that.
Might be something to it.
I'm a firm believer in practicing that, because, you know, I mean, life can be so negative, and you know, especially when you look at the news all the time, and you just see it, the way the world is. It's like, man, what the hell? But, like, take a step back, you know, look at what you have. You're doing good. You have a family, you have a girlfriend, you know, whatever. You know, just take stock of what we do have versus what we don't.
It gets you out of the, like, because you're, like, our neural pathways, once we get in the habit of a thought, our brain defaults there. So if we're used to thinking about something negative or ruminating, that's what our habit's going to be. And what my gratitude practice is really about getting my brain off those railway tracks and onto a different road, and forcing it to practice going a different direction.
I've been trying to do that.
And then it's easier to go a different direction. That's a big thing. I've been working really hard for a long time to become a journaler, which I have not successfully done yet. But I'm really good at night writing down 5 things I'm thankful for, like, every single day. It helps a lot.
Oh, yeah, I bet. I don't know if I could get into that, but I you know, not that there's anything, I'm not saying that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
I'm so busy.
Like,
but so are you.
Like, when you play closing gigs, you're not getting home till 3 a.m. You're not going to, like, take the time to have a cup of tea and journal. You know what I mean?
Maybe I will.
Maybe I would.
I'll pass out like this. Just
or with your fist in your eyeball, like you fell asleep that one time.
I fell asleep sitting up recently with my headset on, and I was just. I woke up. I'm like, what?
Yeah, because your head's just forward the whole time.
I literally just folded forward, like a sheep suit. Man, it was bad. So now we're January 29th and the 30th. They followed the frozen Lasva, then turned up its tributary, the Aspia. This is Mansi country. On the 30th, the diaries record following a Mansi trail, a Manku sled track. and finding 3 markings, notches and carved signs on trunks along the route. The group discussed what these markings could have been or what they meant. Somebody wrote that the Mansi had left them, that they were a script and they could not read it. Skiing was hard, fresh snow over crust, packs at their heaviest, temperatures dropping. Sounds enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
The diary entries are ordinary. Who cooked, whose feet hurt, an argument about heat in the tent, a note about how good the stove was. The final entries in the surviving diaries fall on the 30th and 31st of January. Primary sources for this whole leg, the group diary, Xenia, Ludya's, and the 5 recovered camera films, all public domain since 2009. January 31st, they pushed up the Ospia to where the forest gives out. They tried to get up onto the ridge and were driven back by the wind. The group diary for that day describes the conditions with a professional's economy: strong wind, snow, hard going. They dropped back into the trees and camped. February 1st. In the morning, they built a labaz, a storage cache, a platform in the snow with surplus food and equipment on it, marked and covered so that it could be recovered on the way back. Smart. This is standard practice, and it tells you they intended to return along their same path. The cache held roughly 55 kilograms of food and gear, including a spare pair of boots, the mandolin, and a small quantity of alcohol.
See, that's the ticket. When we went on ad break, Andy was commenting that what would help us with the names is if we were drinking vodka, which I'm kind of disappointed I didn't think to do.
I got stuff to do after this.
Right? I got places to be.
Mommy, what's wrong with that guy walking around? No, don't talk to him.
Bitchy Andy.
Yeah. What are you looking at, kid? More like not even bitchy at that point, just miserable. All right. They also produced a document. Somebody in the group, likely more than one, typed or hand-lettered a joke newsletter titled Evening Otorten, issue number 1, dated February 1st, 1959. It was a running gag in the UPI Club, a satirical camp newsletter written in the style of a Soviet daily. It contained a mock philosophical debate, a comment on the science of building stoves. They really like their stoves. They're very,
Dyatlov stove was a big hit.
Yeah, evidently. Dyatlov is...
It's a beast.
He is a beast. And one line that would be quoted in every article written about this case for the next 67 years. Lately, it has been the subject of heated debate whether snowmen exist. According to the latest information, snowmen live in the northern Urals in the region of Mount Otorten.
Interesting.
And we're not talking snowmen like Frosty.
Yeah,
talking
not the
more,
ones you build.
Yeah, we're talking more like dun 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 Yetis. The original was never recovered from the case file. What exists is a transcription made by investigators. The Yeti line is the single most cited piece of text in the entire story, and nobody has ever seen the original. They set out from the cache around 3 in the afternoon. They climbed out of the trees and onto the eastern shoulder of Kholat Syakhl. Their intended line was to cross the pass to the north and drop into the valley of Lasva's 4th tributary, where there was a forest, wood, and shelter and camp there, a normal move. They did not do that. In poor visibility and heavy wind, the group drifted west up the slope of Kholat Syakhl rather than cross the saddle. When they stopped, they were about 300 meters below the summit on open ground, roughly a mile and a half from the nearest trees, and they also pitched the tent there. The reasons they might have done this are all defensible, and that is why the argument has lasted so long. Descending to the trees would have meant giving up hard-won altitude. They'd have to reclimb the next morning. You never really want to go back.
Yeah.
I mean, it just sucks. You just have to redo it. Camping high on a slope was a technique the UPI Club had used before. The Dyatlov stove, the hit, existed precisely to make it survivable. In whiteout conditions, stopping where you are beats moving where you can't see. Mm-hmm. And a Soviet Category 3 group did not think of itself as fragile. To level a platform on the pitch, they cut it into the slope, excavated a bench roughly a meter to a meter and a half deep into the snow on the uphill side, and they set the tent on it, with the skis laid down as bedding and ski poles as anchors. The last photographs on the group's cameras showed them digging. They set up and they got in. They took their boots off. Some of them changed into dry socks, which you should do. You always do that when you're camping. They ate ham, bread sliced with a knife laid out. Krivoshenko's diary has more line in it. Someone hung the flashlights up. Nobody lit the stove. It was found the next month, still packed in its case, in sections, unassembled. At some point after that, the medical evidence puts it around 6 to 8 hours after the last meal. So somewhere in the late evening or the small hours, all 9 of them cut open the wall of the tent from the inside and left.
Yeah. And so here's where, again, I'm so hung up on nobody lighting the stove. Like they didn't get it out.
It's a hit.
Yeah.
Why aren't you doing that?
Well,
that's very strange.
The first thing that you would do. So they come in and they're like, changing socks, getting comfortable, don't light the stove. And then a few hours later, 6 to 8 hours later, they cut themselves out of the tent.
Mm-hmm.
Dyatlov had told the UPI Sports Club he would telegraph from Vizhai when the group came out, and he had estimated the 12th of February. He had also told Yudin before the group split that the trip might run a couple of days long. February 12th would pass, the 13th, 14th, 15th. Overdue groups were common, right? The club waited, relatives did not. By February 16th and 17th, the families of the hikers were making noise. And on February 20th, the Ural Polytechnical Institute organized a search. The first responders were volunteers, students, and instructors from the Institute's hiking club. People who'd been on trips with the missing and knew the country well. 3 groups went in by air and on foot, dropped along the likely route. Within days, the effort escalated. The Army, the Interior Ministry, the Ivdel Camp Administration's aircraft and dog teams, Monsey hunters as trackers, prisoners as labor, radio operators running a relay through Ivdel. A search headquarters was set up under Yevgeny Maslenikov, the UPI-trained engineer and master of sport, and Colonel Georgy Orteyokov running the military side. Among the searchers were people who'd personally taught these hikers or had been taught by them. Boris Slapstov, Mikhail Sharavin, Yuri Kopetilov, Vladislav Karolin, Georgy Amantaki, Moisey Axelrod. The Monsey hunter Stevan Kurikov and members of the Kurikov and Anyamov families joined as guides. It was, for a while, what they thought was a rescue. Slapstov's group was assigned the slope height of 1079. On the morning of February 26, Boris and Mikhail were working across the eastern face when they saw the corner of dark fabric sticking out of the snow. The tent was mostly buried. It was still anchored at one end, collapsed at the other, with 15 to 20 centimeters of hard snow on top of it. On the snow above the tent or just beside it was a Chinese-made flashlight switched off with a layer of snow under it, meaning it had been placed there before the last snowfall and left there. An ice axe was stuck in the snow outside the tent. Skis stood upright as anchors. The 2 searchers cut the tent further open. This complicated later analysis, right? Because they had cut themselves out and then these people cut themselves in. Everything was in it. 8 or 9 pairs of boots, coats, jackets, quilted trousers, hats, mittens, backpacks, blankets arranged along one side as bedding. The stove, again, disassembled. In its case, food was laid out, a piece of ham sliced with a knife next to it, cameras, diaries, a flask, their money, almost the entire kit of 9 people who had been about to go to sleep. Like, the biggest thing is here, their shoes are there.
Everything. Like the jackets. I mean, and they cut themselves out and then
ran.
Like, exactly, they ran.
Yeah, there were no people, and there were cuts, long tears down the tent's right-hand slope, the downhill side. So they cut themselves out on the downhill side. Slapstov and Sharavin found a bottle of alcohol in the tent and drank some of it. I mean, as one does. Below the tent, running down slope to the northeast, were footprints pressed into the snow and then frozen, raised into columns as the loose snow around them blew away, which is how tracks preserve on wind-scoured tundra. There were 8 or 9 distinct sets made by people in socks, in single boots, and in bare feet.
Oh.
They ran in a line, side by side, in a group. They didn't scatter. They didn't zigzag. Investigators specifically recorded that the spacing and depth indicated walking, not running in some spots, and that no one appeared to have been carried or dragged.
Wow.
The tracks stayed visible for 400 to 500 meters down the slope. Then the terrain changed and the snow took them. They pointed towards the forest a mile and a half away. On February 26th, that same day, Sharavin and Yuri Kopetilov followed the line down to the tree line to a large old Siberian pine, a cedar in Russian usage, standing at the edge of the forest. Under it were the remains of a small fire and 2 bodies.
Wow.
Yuri Doroshenko, 21, and Georgy Krivoshenko, 23, were lying beside the fire's remains in their underwear. Doroshenko was in a torn undershirt and long underwear, no shoes. Krivoshenko was in shorts, a torn shirt, and 1 sock. Between them, they had almost nothing on. Their outer clothing was a mile and a half uphill in the tent. Wow. The fire had been small, burned for maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours. It had been built with branches they could reach and had gone out. The tree above them was damaged. Branches looked like it had broken off up to a height of about 5 meters. Thick ones up to 7 centimeters across, snapped and torn. Somebody had climbed that tree in the dark, in the cold, in bare feet, torn the limbs off it either for firewood or for a line of sight back up the slope toward the tent. Krivoshenko's hands were burned. There were also burns on his shins. There was a fragment of his own skin found in his mouth from a bitten knuckle. Doroshenko had gray foam in his mouth, which is pulmonary edema, for those of you that are familiar with both altitude sickness and hypothermia. Clothing had been cut off of both of them. Like, not torn, cut with a knife. In a way, it was consistent with someone removing usable fabric from a body that was already dead. That clothing turned up 2 months later on other people.
What?
Yes. February 26th and 27th, between the cedar and the tent on the open slope, searchers found 3 more bodies over the next 2 days, spaced along what looked to be a line of return, like they were trying to get back. Igor Dyatlov, 23, was 300 meters from the cedar. He was on his back, head uphill toward the tent. One hand was gripping a small birch branch. He was in a sweater, ski trousers, and 1 sock. His outer clothing and boots were still in the tent. He had superficial abrasions and frostbite. He had died going back up. Zina Kolmogorova, 22, was 630 meters from the cedar, further up, closer to the tent than any of them got. She was curled in a defensive posture. She was better dressed than the others, but had no shoes still. She had a long abrasion across her right side, described in the autopsy as a band of bruising around the lower torso, and her hands were frostbitten. Rustem Slobodin, 23, was found on March 5th. Between the two of them, 480 meters from the cedar, face down, half covered in snow. He was wearing one felt boot. The other was in the tent. Beneath his body was a hollow of melted and refrozen snow, a, quote, bed formed by the heat of a body that was still generating warmth when he laid down. He was the last of the 5 to stop moving. His autopsy would find a crack in his skull 6 centimeters long on the frontal bone, and all 3 of them were facing uphill. After 2 months of digging, they found everyone else. The search continued through March into April, the soldiers probing snowfields around the cedar with metal rods, meter by meter. Snow depth in the ravine below the tree line ran to 4 meters. On March 31st, searchers at the Auspia camp recorded seeing a bright moving object in the sky, which we'll come back to. In April, the snow began to go. On May 4th, guided in part by the Monsey trackers and the scattering of cut fir branches and scraps of clothing melting out to the surface, researchers dug into a ravine about 75 meters from the cedar, deeper into the forest where a small stream ran under a snowpack. 4 meters down, they found a nastile, a flooring. 14 small fir and birch trees had been cut down, laid side by side to make a platform on the snow, with clothing spread over top of it, the legs of trousers, sleeves, and a jacket. It was a shelter. 4 people had built a place to try to survive the night in the dark with a knife 75 meters from where 2 of their friends were freezing to death by a fire. The nastile was empty. The 4 bodies would be found about 6 meters away in and beside the stream bed under the snow. Lyudmila Dubinina, 20, 8 days short of 21, was found kneeling, chest and face against the boulder in the stream as if she had pitched forward. She was wearing Krovoshenko's burned and torn trousers, cut down and wrapped around her leg and foot. Her own clothing was insufficient. She had a sweater that had come off another body. Semyon Solitaryov, 38, the gentleman that was the oldest, also known as Sasha, was lying next to her. He was the best dressed person recovered. He had a hat, coat, several layers on, had a camera on a strap around his neck, a camera that does not appear on the group's equipment inventory, which is one of the odder, because again, they had to document everything. They had to document how much equipment they had for these routes. That was not recorded, but also the film inside it was ruined. Nikolai, 23, was near them, also well-dressed, wearing 2 hats and Dubinina's fur coat. Alexander Kolevtov, 24, was found beside Solitaryov in a posture that searchers described as the 2 men pressed together. And they had been in running water under the snow for 3 months. Let's talk about the autopsies. Dyatlov, Doroshenko, Kravchenko, Kolmogorova, and Slobodin all ruled died from hypothermia. Slobodin's skull fracture, a 6-centimeter crack in the frontal bone with associated hemorrhage, was noted, and Votsrotsny concluded it itself was not fatal, though it would have caused concussion and disorientation. All 5 had frostbite. Several had minor abrasions consistent with moving over frozen ground and rock in inadequate clothing. Vozrovdany, this is the person who did the autopsies, estimated from stomach contents that death occurred approximately 6 to 8 hours after their last meal. And this is where things get real weird. Nikolai Thibaut Brignol, is that how we decided it was pronounced?
Yeah,
Thibaut?
I believe so,
Thibaut
yes.
Brignol had a massive depressed fracture of the skull, the right temporal parietal region driven inward with a fracture line running across the base of the skull and extensive hemorrhage, cause of death, head injury. Lidmila Dubinina had a bilateral rib fracture. The report lists fractures of the ribs on both sides, several of them broken in 2 places, with hemorrhage into the chest cavity, into the heart muscle itself, and massive internal bleeding. Cause of death, chest trauma. Semyon Zolotaryov, the fractures of the ribs on the right side in the same pattern, in the same exact pattern as Ludya's were. Cause of death, chest trauma. Alexander Kolevatov had no major fractures. He had a deformation of the neck and damage behind his ear. Cause of death was recorded as hypothermia. No explanation for the damage. So this is the weirdest freaking part.
And I'm going to piggyback on that a little bit and add something. There was another mysterious thing about it, too. I think it was also Ludya. She was missing her tongue.
Oh, we're getting into that.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Didn't want to jump ahead, but I'm like, this is the part that
Dubinina, Ludya,
is weird.
Was missing her eyes, her tongue, part of her lips, and some soft tissues of her face, along with fragments of the skull's diplo.
Yeah.
Zolotaryov was also missing his eyeballs.
Yeah.
Kolevatov was missing his eyebrows and had soft tissue loss on the face. Thibaut Brignol had soft tissue damage as well. And so we're talking about tundra. There's no, animals
You
here.
might have some scavengers,
some
but that's
scavengers, not very many.
Tongue.
Well, also, and not in the middle of winter when the bodies are either underwater or under snow.
Yeah, true.
So strange. Vorotsky classified all of this as post-mortem. The bodies had been face down in a running stream under the snow for 3 months. Soft tissue and water goes first. So obviously water could take some of these away. Eyes, tongue, lips, delicate surfaces. But some of them that were missing soft tissue were not in the water. And so here we are.
Weird.
There's no forensic finding in the file that any of it happened while they were alive. But the tongue in particular was described for 6 decades as torn out. The autopsy describes the absence of the tongue and the tissue of the floor of the mouth. Very different claims, but very, very strange. And again, I guess water could destroy it.
But not rip it out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's described as ripped out.
That's so weird.
Like that.
And then again, some of them that had soft tissue damage. I mean, and granted, there could be, again, maybe some small rodents or scavengers, but if you're under snow or face down.
And also not necessarily, too, because think about this, they're going to be frozen.
Yeah.
I don't think anything can really rip it off at that point.
Yeah.
So to tear something off, you have to have some tremendous force.
Yep.
The
finding that broke the case open in 1959 and has kept it open was Vozrostny's characterization of the chest and skull trauma. These are the really big things, right? Because we can at least say, okay, it's possible that water and scavengers maybe, pulled out this soft tissue, right? We can get there because soft tissue is the first to go. But the chest and skull trauma, asked at the time what force could produce those type of injuries, he said the fractures were of a kind produced by a very large, rapidly applied pressure compared to getting hit by a car.
Oh.
And critically, that there were no corresponding external wounds. They somehow had massive internal injury comparable to getting hit by a car.
Yep.
With no external injury.
No visible signs.
Dubinina's ribs were shattered, but her skin was intact. Thibaut Brignol's skull was crushed, and there was no scalp laceration.
It's weird, dude.
Yes.
Weird.
Vozrostny stated that this could not have been done by another human being. A person cannot generate the force with their hands to create that much force. And even if they could, there would have been surface damage.
Yeah. Some kind of bruising and anything. Yeah.
Is the big thing.
That's
because
bizarre.
So many of these, there was a handful of these people that didn't die from the cold. They died from trauma.
Right. Yeah. So all that's really, dude, that is just it's so bizarre. And that's what initially pulled me in when I first heard about this case.
That's what gets me about it is how in the world do you have that much? One, where did the internal trauma come from? Two, how do you have it without any external injuries?
The Yeti did it.
The Yeti did it.
I'm blaming him. In April 1959, a forensic expert named Janitra Cherkina examined the tent fabric. The primary source of this was Chernika's criminalistic examination report, case file 16, or April 16th, 1959, rather. Her conclusion, the principal cuts were made from the inside with a knife or similar blade, and the tears of the edges ran in a way consistent with someone slashing outward than opposed to pushing through. Some damage was external, but the main exits were cut from within. The complicating factor is that searchers, Slopsov and Sharavin among them, had also cut and torn at the tent before anyone had photographed it, which we had talked about. But whenever I hear that too of them cutting on the inside, it's like they're trying to get out and get away from something.
And why wouldn't you go through the tent entrance?
Yeah.
That's the big...
And I know tents back then were a little bit different, just to fasten. They didn't necessarily have a zipper. They were more like a tied kind of fasten.
So maybe it was just you needed to get out fast.
I think that's what it was. So something was outside maybe.
Well, but here's my thing. If something is around and you're trying to flee out of the tent, was it inside the tent? Yeah,
I mean... That's a good point,
right?
Too.
Because let's say I'm out camping, and I'm no woodsman. Let's be clear, but
I am.
Like, let's say I hear something outside. I'm staying in the tent.
Yeah.
The last thing I'm going to do is come out of the tent,
unless panic sets in and they see a Yeti. Something. But I'll say this: the logical part of my brain says this: what could have caused them to evacuate the tent so quickly? An avalanche.
Yeah, but here it says these slopes don't have any avalanche chutes, and I don't know that there's enough snow. Maybe they heard something and thought an avalanche was coming.
I don't know.
Because here's the thing: is they moved to get out of the tent quickly,
right?
But then they walk down the slope.
True. So
I don't know.
My logical brain's going. It's throwing off sparks. It's on the fritz. On May 27, 1959, the chief radiologist of the Sverdlovsk City Epidemiological Station, Vladimir Levskov, reported on radiological testing of clothing from the ravine bodies. 3 items showed beta contamination above normal background. A brown sweater worn by Dubinina at about 9,900 decays per minute. Kholatov's trousers at about 5,000, and the waistband of Kholatov's sweater at about 5,600. The report noted that these levels exceeded permissible occupational contamination for people working with radioactive materials, and that washing and running water would have reduced them. These garments had been in a stream for 3 months. What the hell?
So they were way higher.
Yeah.
Then.
And it would have been, they were in the river. They would have been gone. Yeah. 3 months, it would have been gone.
Yeah. So it would have been much, much higher if there's still that much being you can track or trace at that time.
What the heck? The ordinary explanation is Krivoshenko. He worked at Mayak. He had done cleanup after the Christian disaster. Clothing was shared and redistributed among the group in their last hours as a matter of survival. And the contaminated garments were on the bodies of people who had taken clothing off of other people. That's the boring answer, and it fits the physical facts.
That does fit the facts, but for me, I'm just curious, like how much radiation was on them before they were in the stream?
What are they glowing like Mr. Burns from The Simpsons? I mean, they were in water for 3 months, and it was still that high.
Right.
What the heck? The extraordinary explanation is that the group was exposed to something on that mountain. The report itself does not say that. It reports numbers. Aliens, man.
I will say that Krivoshenko, it does make sense, but man, his clothes would have had to been cooking with contamination.
I mean, next level contaminated. So relatives who saw the bodies described the skin as orange, brown, or tanned. And some described their hair of the dead as having gone gray. Both are documented reactions of human tissue to prolonged exposure, freeze drying, UV at altitude, and 3 months of decomposition and mummification produce exactly this discoloration. It is also the observation that convinced a lot of grieving people in 1959 that their children had been irradiated, and no official explanation was offered to them at that time because no official was talking to them at all.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, obviously, especially you're at the height of the Cold War, the height of like this nuclear energy, nuclear incident. And then you do have that like the officials aren't telling them anything. So that's where a lot of like the conspiracy theories that would later form and this idea that like many people's families wondered or thought that their children had been irradiated. But no wonder they're going to think that considering the environment and the Soviet Union just being so secretive about everything. And the officials the officials are not saying anything.
Yeah. I mean, and again, that's what initially pulled me into this case when I first heard about it was the orange bodies found and the tongue missing. I'm like, what got him?
It's like, wait, what?
Yeti got him, or aliens or something. I mean, who knows?
I don't know.
Who knows? I mean, that is so bizarre. So a criminal case was opened by Vasily Tempelov the Ivdel town prosecutor at the end of February and was taken by Lev Nikitich Ivanov,
Woo!
senior criminal investigator for Sverdlovsk Oblast. Ivanov flew to the site. He interviewed researchers, Mansi hunters, meteorologists, and the families. The file grew to roughly 400 pages. The Mansi were the first suspects. Several men from the Anyamov, Bakhtirov, and the Kurikov families were detained and interrogated on the theory that the hikers had trespassed on sacred ground and been killed for it. The investigation dropped it. There were no tracks on the slope but the hikers. There were no defensive injuries, no sign of a struggle, nothing taken. The Mansi were also, in practical terms, the people helping to find the bodies. They were released. Ivanov also collected accounts of lights in the sky. This is an interesting one, too.
Mm-hmm.
On February 17th, 1959, at around 6:30 in the morning, residents across the north of Sverdlovsk Oblast reported a large luminous sphere moving across the sky. It was taken from Ivdel, from Serov, from the camps. It was reported in the newspaper Taglisky Robochi. Hopefully that's, sorry about that. Hopefully it's somewhat close. It was also seen by Vladislav Karlin's hiking group, who were in the field at the time, and by Georgy Atmanaki, both whom later joined the search and both of whom gave statements about it. On March 31st, researchers camped at the Uspia recorded another one, a bright ring or sphere that moved across the sky for about 20 minutes and then vanished. It went into the file at a radiogram from the search party to headquarters. Colonel Yukov's team reported it up the chain. Neither of those dates is February 1st. There is no documented sighting on the night the group died. The other fact about February 17th is that the Soviet Union was firing R-7 rockets out of Bakhmur, and the northern Urals sat under the flight path of a range of missile trajectories. Luminous spheres over the Urals in 1959 have an available terrestrial explanation, and the people who saw them were not told it, because that would have meant confirming the existence of said missile program.
Mm-hmm.
On May 28th, 1959, Lev Ivanov had closed the case. The formulation in Russian is an elemental force which the tourists were not able to overcome. No guilty party, no further explanation. The file was classified and archived. Access was restricted. The area around the pass was closed to hikers for 3 years. 8 of the 9 were buried at the cemetery in Sverdlovsk. Krivenchenko was buried in Ivanovsky Cemetery on his family's decision. The funerals in March drew crowds large enough to alarm the authorities.
I don't want people asking questions.
Yeah, too many questions
people
have been asked here. Disperse. Anyway. And everybody's gonna be like, "That Russian is so insensitive."
It's so bad. It's like, listen, my accent's bad.
Look, I'm basically Boris and
he
Natasha from Rocky and Bullwinkle over here.
There it is.
Anyway, in November 1990, a Cossack regional newspaper called Lenski Put in Kustanai, a retired prosecutor published an article titled "The Enigma of the Fireballs." The author was Lev Ivanov. In it, he wrote about his investigation had no rational explanation for what happened on Kholat Syakhl. He wrote that he had been instructed by senior officials in Sverdlovsk to leave the reports of luminous spheres out of the conclusion. He wrote that he had come to believe the deaths were connected to something in the sky that he had not permitted to investigate. And he apologized to the families for the way they had been treated. All the way in 1997, negatives from Krivenchenko's camera were discovered in Ivanov's private archive after his death and given to the Dyatlov Foundation.
Wow.
Wild.
All right, let's talk theories. There are more than 70 published theories about Dyatlov Pass. They sort into kind of 4 distinct categories: snow, weather, humans, and whatever was going on in the sky. And so we're going to kind of address these. So the problem that the theory has to solve has to account for all of these things at once. Number 1, we have 9 experienced people cut their way out of a tent from the inside rather than going out the entrance. Number 2, they left boots, coats, and a knife-cut escape behind in conditions where nobody with their training would voluntarily do that. But number 3, they walked. They did not run. They did not scatter. Number 4, they went 1.5 miles downhill to the tree line. That's the right direction if you need shelter and fuel, the wrong direction if you need your clothes. Number 5, once there, they behaved competently, right? They build a fire, they're tree climbing, they're cutting a platform, redistributing clothing of the dead. But then 6, 3 of them tried to go back up.
Yeah.
and died there. And then 7, 4 of them sustained catastrophic internal injuries with no external wounds. And number 8, they all died. An explanation that solves points 1 and 2 usually breaks on points 3 and 5 and vice versa. That's what makes it so hard. So family 1 of theories is snow, like you mentioned. The avalanche theory is the original and the official one. And for most of 67 years, it was also the least popular because the slope does not look capable of one, and because none of the searchers who got there 3 weeks later saw avalanche debris.
And the one thing too, even if they cut their way out of the tent because an avalanche is coming, you're not going to walk from an avalanche.
Yeah,
you're gonna
run.
Haul
you're
butt.
Cooking.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. You're trying to get away from it.
Yeah.
The objections here have always been the same, and they're good objections. The pitch is 15 to 23 degrees, the low end of what releases. There's no debris in the field, no run out, no burial of the tent under a mass of snow. The snow that was on top of the tent was like snowfall.
Mm-hmm.
The tent ski poles were still standing. The footprints below the tent survived, right? No avalanche covered them. Under a snow slide, they shouldn't have.
Yeah.
More than 100 subsequent expeditions to the site have never observed an avalanche there ever.
Wow.
The group contained a certified mountain instructor and a leader with 8 treks behind him who would not have sighted a tent under a loaded slope. Like he would have known enough to not be under that.
Yeah, totally.
The slab avalanche theory answers most of that. It is the one that is won kind of the argument the most. A slab avalanche is not a cloud of powder. It's like a plate of wind-packed snow that fractures along a weak layer and slides as a unit. And if it is small, it can move a short distance, stop, and leave very little visible trace after 3 weeks of wind. The mechanism proposed for the Kholat Syakhl run is like this, that the group cut a bench a meter or more into the slope to level their tent, severing the snowpack, creating a free edge. Katabatic winds, this cold, dense air draining downhill off the plateau, then transported snow onto the slope above the cut all evening, loading that slab progressively. After the cut was made, after a few hours, the accumulated load of snow exceeded the strength of the layer, causing that small slab to release and come downhill onto the uphill part of the tent. This was formalized in a paper that was published on January 28th of 2021 in Communications, Earth and Environment, a nature journal, by Johann Gaum of the EPFL in Lausanne and Alexander Puzerin of ETH Zurich. They modeled the slope, the cut, the wind loading, and they modeled the impact of a snow slab on a human body lying on a rigid surface. For the body impact simulation, they adapted animation code originally written to render snow for Disney's Frozen, which is one of the least likely sentences I thought I would ever say regarding death and science. So I do like that they also documented that, like, if a snow slab falls on a human body, it might account for the rib and traumatic injuries, possibly. So their findings: a slab as small as 5 meters across could release on that slope given the cut and the wind loading, with a delay of 9 or more hours between the cut and the failure. That resolves the timing problem. The slab impacting a person lying on a bed of stiff skis can produce multiple rib fractures and skull fractures without external wounds because the load is distributed and the surface underneath it is rigid. That is the mechanism the 1948 forensic examiner could not name. He could describe the injuries, but he didn't know how they got there. What the slabs theory doesn't do cleanly is it doesn't explain why they went 1.5 miles rather than like 100 meters. Yeah. It doesn't explain why the tent wasn't buried, why the 2 hikers at the Cedar died in their underwear while 3 of their friends were walking back uphill. It
makes no sense.
It makes no sense. And then so category 2 of theories is weather. The katabatic wind theory was advanced most prominently by Swedish-Russian expedition of Richard Holmgren and Andreas Liljegren in 2019, who went to the site in February and camped in the exact same conditions. Katabatic winds are gravity-driven downslope flows of dense cold air. They can arrive with almost no warning and reach hurricane force. The Swedish researchers pointed to a documented precedent in 1978 at Anaris in Sweden. A group of experienced skiers were caught in a sudden violent downslope wind event, and 8 of them died.
Wow.
In circumstances that included abandoned equipment and bodies found short distances from shelter. Under this reading, the tent became untenable in minutes. A 4-meter tent in 100-kilometer-an-hour wind is a sail, right? It was also partly collapsing. Cutting out of the downwind side and getting off the exposed slope is not panic. It's like the right thing to do. Weighing the tent down with snow so it survives, leaving a light on as a beacon, and retreating to the tree line to wait out the event is something that mountaineers would do. The bodies found on the slope facing uphill are the people who went back for the gear when they judged that the wind had slowed down. The Holmgren and Lilgren expedition also proposed that the 4 in the ravine built 2 shelters, that one collapsed, a snow bridge over the stream giving way, dropping people several meters onto rock and ice, producing the crushing injuries. I feel like you would have external injuries if you fall,
There'd be some sort of outside.
Something, like a scrape or something.
Something.
The whiteout, the simplest weather contribution, is the least discussed. On the night of February 1st, the group was in cloud in the dark with blowing snow. Visibility may have been only a few meters. Once you are 400 meters downslope from a tent you can't see on a featureless white shoulder with no landmarks, you cannot find that tent again. I think that's a fair explanation for why some of them didn't walk back up. You can't see it.
Yeah, fair enough.
And then group 3 is humans. So this was ruled out in 1959. It was never seriously revived. There's no tracks. There's no struggle, right? They interviewed these Mansky men that actually were part of the searchers, but there's no other evidence that any other people were there.
Nope.
The region is full of camps. The theory originally was that a group of escapees attacked the tent. But again, there's no third-party tracks. There's no defensive wounds. Nothing was taken. The tent is literally full of food, money, alcohol, boots, a mandolin.
Dyatlov stove.
Right. And
worth
they didn't
its
take
weight in
anything.
gold.
They didn't take anything. So this is the other kind of category in this humans theory is military testing. This is the big one in Russia. The specific version of this is the group camped inside the impact zone of a weapons test. Parachute mines, air-delivered munitions that detonate above ground are the usual candidate because their signature injury is exactly what Vozrodeny described, severe internal blast trauma with intact skin. Under this theory, the detonations drove the group from the tent. They retreated downhill. Those closest to a subsequent blast were killed by overpressure. Supporting circumstantial material is the radiological findings, the closure of the area for 3 years afterward, the classification of the file, Ivanov's 1990 statement that he was ordered to omit the fireballs, the presence in the group of 2 men who worked in a nuclear complex, and a third who had until recently worked in Moscow for the ministry that ran it, and the sheer density of secret military and nuclear infrastructure in that particular oblast. But against it, there's no crater, no fragments, no burns. Beyond what is explained by the campfire, blast overpressure severe enough to shatter a rib cage would also rupture the eardrums and lungs.
Yeah.
And the autopsies don't show that. The related radiological weapons variant is that the group was exposed to a deliberate or accidental release. Again, runs into the fact that the contamination was on 3 garments, but not on the bodies. And 2 of those garments were worn by people who had taken clothing from a Mayak cleanup worker. So, too much.
My God.
Too much. All right. And then the last category of theories is the sky. In his 2013 book, Dead Mountain, the American filmmaker and writer Donnie Eicher proposed a mechanism that had not been in literature, a Kármán vortex street. When wind flows past a blunt symmetrical obstacle at a certain speed, it sheds alternating vortices downstream in a regular pattern. The dome of Kholat Syakhl is very close to that geometry. The result can be a standing oscillation in the air that frequencies below human hearing, infrasound under 20 hertz. Infrasound at sufficient amplitude has documented physiological effects on some people: nausea, chest pressure, disorientation, a sense of dread. Extreme cases cause panic. It's been studied in the context of haunted buildings, where a low-frequency standing wave from machinery correlates with reports of unease and apparitions. Eicher's reconstruction, the vortex street set up over the tent that night, the group experienced escalating physical distress and terror that they couldn't explain. They get out of the tent as fast as they can. They move downhill out of the affected zone where they get their composure back. Then we start seeing what they're doing to save themselves. And that would account for the calm, competent behavior once they got to the tree line. Then they would have to find their way back in the dark and died of exposure. The ravine injuries caused by falls in the dark onto rock. But again, this one seems so half-baked to me.
Yeah.
Because again, you're not going to get those injuries falling onto rocks without some kind of external.
It all boils down to the external. There's no external injuries.
I think the only thing that explains that is the slab.
That's about it. But still,
I think that's the one that comes closest to explaining what happened.
Here's my thing, though. Your slabs and avalanches and your science is all well and good. What ripped the tongue out? What ripped the eyeballs?
Well, but they were saying that because she was face down in the water, that it could have been because water decomposition eats away skin, but also fish.
Yeah, I don't buy that. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, you Russians. I don't buy it.
I don't buy it.
I don't freaking buy it, dude. I am sorry, but this is all well and good. I love the theories. It's still weird.
It's so weird.
I'm not going this like, oh yeah, you won me over. Yeah, okay.
I don't think there
slab.
is any of the theories that explain everything. That's the one I think that comes the closest.
Yeah.
And then in February of 2019, the Russian Prosecutor General's office reopened the case. The stated scope was narrow and made a lot of people really pissed. The review would consider 3 possibilities only: avalanche, slab avalanche, and hurricane force wind. Criminal causes were excluded from the outset on the grounds that the statute of limitations and the 1959 findings foreclosed them. The team would be led by Andrei Kurakov, deputy head of the Urals Federal District Directorate. They reviewed the original file, re-interviewed surviving witnesses and researchers, commissioned meteorological reconstruction of the conditions on February 1st, went to the site with an alpinist to test lines of sight and visibility. The meteorological finding actually was a great new contribution. The 1959 investigators arrived 3 weeks after the event in better weather conditions. They did not have data on what that night itself was like. The reconstruction put it at wind speeds of 20 to 30 meters per second, heavy snowfall, and temperatures around minus 40 with the wind in the dark.
Oh.
Real rough weather.
Oh.
The conclusion, announced on July 11th, 2020, a snow slab loosened by the cut the group made into the slope, loaded by the wind, moved down onto the tent during the night. The group evacuated through the fabric because the entrance end was compromised and retreated to the tree line, a rational decision. In near zero visibility, with the tent invisible from below, they could not get back to it. They split. 2 stayed by the fire. 3 attempted the return and died on the slope. 4 went into the ravine seeking better shelter and were injured when the snow structure over the stream collapsed. Kurakov's summary line was, "It was a heroic struggle. There was no panic, but they had no chance to save themselves under their circumstances." He also said the group's fatal error was leaving visual contact with the tent, that a distance of 50 meters would have been survivable, but 1,500 was not.
Yeah, they really booked it out of there.
Yeah, like they went a long ways from it, right, and couldn't make it back.
Yep. Fear caused that.
Yeah.
There was something, there's no doubt.
Well, and
in my
also,
mind.
even if it is a slab avalanche, right, they don't know that in the dark. They just know snow's crushing us, right, and it's collapsed on a couple people.
Right.
So they're thinking avalanche risk, I think, getting further away.
Yeah.
Because they think it's an actual avalanche.
Right, of course.
They wouldn't know the difference at that moment.
And of course, in those weather conditions, you're not going to know exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
The Dyatlov Foundation, established in Yekaterinburg in 1999 with support from the successor institution to UPI and led for years by Yuri Kuntsevich, rejected the 2020 conclusion. The foundation and relatives of the dead challenged it in court, arguing that the investigation was not a genuine reinvestigation, that it excluded the possibilities that the most needed examining, and that it had not been conducted as a criminal proceeding with the rights that would have given the families. Sverdlovsk courts had declined to overturn it. Their objection is not primarily about avalanches. It's about 60 years of a family being told that a file exists, that it is closed, and that they may not read it. That's the messed up part, man. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Access. I mean,
It's
and
not
that
Soviet
is,
Union anymore.
the Soviet Union was notorious for that.
Oh, they
kind
were
of thing.
all about that.
Always about secrecy,
Oh, yeah.
The
West might find out.
It is obscene how much I have watched the show Chernobyl.
Oh, really?
Like the little miniseries by HBO. I love it so much. But like that's the theme of the whole thing. It's just all the secrecy, all the lies. Don't let, put up a good front. Don't let people know what's going on.
Yep.
And let's be clear, other countries do this a lot too. I just think the Soviet Union was very, it was kind of a mass standard practice.
Oh, yeah. And that was just the way the world was. Even the United States back then, we can't let the Soviets
secretive.
find out.
So secretive. Yeah.
That's why we faked the moon
we still
landing.
have that.
To freak the Russians out. I'm telling you,
That's
man.
what we're going to do. We're going to talk about our favorite conspiracy theories on the Fireside Chat. We're going to do that right after this.
Awesome. The one who lived, Yuri Yudin, graduated from UPI in 1960 and moved to Solikamsk and Permkrai, where he worked at a magnesium plant. He founded and ran a hiking club there called Polyus. He became a conservationist and a preservationist, served as a deputy head of the City for Economic Policy in the 1990s, and was instrumental in creating Solikamsk's Mineralogical Museum and in protecting the region's historical architecture. People described him as charismatic and cultured. So he never married. He said there had been nothing romantic between him and Lydia, and he had kept the toy bear she handed him at the Second Northern for 54 years. I mean, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So he went to the cemetery every year on February 2nd. A searcher who saw him there recorded what he said at the graves. I should have been with you. Talk about survivor's guilt, man.
Yeah.
Oy. He never accepted the avalanche explanation. He believed to the end that the group had been killed by a military test. I lean towards that too. I lean more towards the Yeti, but military sounds good.
Yeah.
In his last years, he withdrew and told people he was writing a novel about the past. When he died, there was no manuscript in the apartment, only newspaper clippings and research notes sorted. Yuri Yudin died on April 27th, 2013 at 75 of rheumatic heart disease. His ashes were buried at that cemetery with the others. A memorial plaque to him was unveiled in Solomonsk on July 1st, 2016. 10 people got on a train in 1959. All 10 are now in the same ground. It's wild.
So before I go to the highlights, our little recap. I mean, are you leaning towards Yeti or are you leaning towards military?
You've known me for quite a while now.
It's the Yeti.
It's honestly, the only logical explanation is the radioactive Nazi alien Bigfoot that got them.
Clear, that's it. We solved it. We solved the case. Call Putin. We have news for him.
Get Seagal on the line.
Get Seagal on the line.
Get
We're
Putin
gonna
on
tell
the
him.
line. That is the logical explanation.
I know it is the least glamorous explanation, but I do lean towards slab avalanche. I know. Not glamorous.
Just like those Russians back then.
Yeah, just look at me.
Fun.
Just look at me.
Nothing.
I will ask the questions.
No, I mean, honestly, probably, I lean towards a military test.
Yep.
I think something, that concussiveness,
Yep.
maybe something went off. Maybe they heard something being detonated.
Well, especially telling the investigator that he can't include the lights in his
that's
research.
very secretive.
Yeah.
There was nothing over there.
Yeah.
But the thing that still bothers me, they cut out their way out of the tent. That's fine. They walked.
Yep.
Like that's still weird. Like if there's an any form of avalanche,
you're running.
You're booking it. You know, military testing, Nazi alien Bigfoot. You're running.
Yeah.
Like why are they walking?
Yeah.
The whole thing just weird, man.
Yeah.
It's weird.
It is so strange. And before I do our 5 highway highlights, we are going to put the travel itinerary on Patreon. We ended up, because we got so into this episode and there was so much to it.
So much.
We ran out of time. So we're going to put it over there. But our highway highlights. So number 1, the competence is the mystery. This was what you were just talking about. This was not a group of amateurs who panicked. Every action when they left the tent was smart. They stayed together. They walked in single file. They set a fire. They started tree climbing. They started building a branch platform. They distributed the clothing from the dead. The 3 who turned around and went back uphill, again, textbook cold weather survival, executed in dark, freezing temperatures. The unexplained window is about 2 hours wide between dinner and the knife cutting out of the tent. Wow. So number 2, we do have mechanisms for the injuries now. In 1959, Varovzdany could not describe the crushed ribs and caved-in skull under unbroken skin, or at least give an explanation for it. But we do know that we've produced a slab avalanche impact model that would show that if a slab fell on people, that's exactly what would happen. The missing eyes and tongue have had a mundane forensic explanation. 3 months face down in running water. Sorry. I know that ruins it for you. Listen here.
BS. Proceed.
3, the secrecy really helped make the folklore, which I agree with. Right, we do have radiation on 3 garments, but we know that at least one of those people worked in a huge nuclear disaster.
That dude must have been on fire, though.
I know, with those numbers still that high. The fireballs were seen on February 17th and March 31st, not on February 1st, and the Urals sat under missile trajectories nobody was allowed to mention. The state classified a file about 9 dead students, closed the area for 3 years, told the families nothing, and then acted surprised that people filled the silence and came up with their own ideas. Number 4, the Monsi were the first suspects and the best trackers. They were interrogated on the theory that they'd killed 9 Russians for trespassing on sacred ground, but there was absolutely no evidence of that. There was no footprints. There was nothing to link them to any kind of harm. Number 5, 10 people, again, got on that train. Yuri Yudin's back went out and he handed his food to his friends, rode a sledge back to the logging camp, and would live another 54 years, going to their graves every February 2nd, saying that he should have been with them, but he is buried with them now.
God, awful.
Insane story.
Insane.
And to the point. Like, there is no explanation that explains all of it.
Yeah, no.
But like, you just kind of have to pick one. So we want to hear in the comments, what's your theory? What's your theory?
Side with me is what I'm saying. Side with me. One of us.
One of us. I mean, who knows? But but also so sad.
Oh yeah, I mean, they're all young.
All
young
9
people,
of them.
You know.
Yep. So many of them like getting ready to graduate and get their stuff together. Sad.
Maybe their mandolin shredding caused the avalanche.
That's what it was. Their singing caused the avalanche.
They were singers, probably.
I do love that the first day he got arrested for singing.
Get off
for
of
singing
here.
and busking.
Oh, that's great. Downtown Nashville.
All right, everybody. Travel itinerary is going to be on Patreon because we ran this episode real long.
A lot of stuff here, guys.
We're going to do our fireside chat now. We're going to talk about our favorite conspiracy theories. And
who knows what else.
And who knows what else. So again, if you want these episodes ad-free, you can go to patreon.com/highway to hell podcast. And we will see you soon. See you next week.
Thanks, everybody.